Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the March 9th special board meeting. This evening, we'll start with a special board meeting. And then we'll take a pause because we have someone in the audience that will be making an introduction. And so give that person a little bit of time to spend with the media. And then we'll get into our work session for the evening. So to begin with, Kenzie, please call roll.
Becker.
Here.
McCoy. Here. Lyerly.
Here.
Gerlach. Here. Minnow.
Here.
Cannell. Here. Meister. Here.
Okay, we are all present and accounted for. We'll get right into it. So in September, the Board of Education initiated the process of looking for a new superintendent by contracting with CISA 7 to help us in that initiative. And since that time, it's been a very structured approach of planning and making sure that we received input from the community and exactly the attributes of a person that we were looking for. We've gone through and had first round of interviews, the second round of interviews, a day in the district, which put the candidates through several intense engagements with multiple groups of people within the district that really want to make sure that we selected someone that met our values. So I would like Mr. Michael Hernandez to come to the table. He is the successful candidate, and I'll open the floor to him and let him introduce himself to us.
I can tell you that there's a lot of emotions going through me right now. I think excitement is probably the most one of them. I want to thank you all for trusting and having confidence and asking me I'm going to be part of this team. I'm extremely excited about coming in and advocating for our community here. And now I get to say ours because I get to come in here soon. There's a long history of support from the community for our public schools. And to me, that's going to be over the next several months, opportunity to listen, learn from our teachers and our staff and our staff, our students, our community and families. And then from there, we'll start working on our action steps to begin grinding. So thank you.
Well, I want to, on behalf of the Board of Education, extend to you a warm welcome. And we really look forward to engaging you through getting through a contract and getting you started this summer. So yes. Again, welcome to Green Bay.
Thank you.
Board members, I want to just open the floor. Don't want to leave anyone else out if you want to say anything. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, we have a short agenda this evening. I'll go directly into agenda item 3A, transfer of staff. Lynn, will you please read the motion, please?
I move that the transfer of staff as presented be approved.
Second.
Any discussion? Kenzie?
Online voting is now open. Andrew, are you able to vote online?
Apparently not at the moment. I'll vote aye.
All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Thank you. 3B, resignation of staff. Lynn?
I move that the resignation of staff as presented be approved.
Second.
Any discussion? Alex?
I just wanted to quickly say, looking at this list, there's one particular staff member that I really wish her the best, and I wish she was still with us. I think she knows who she is, and I wish her the best in the future. And hopefully there's an opportunity in the future to see her again in our district.
Any other discussion? All right, Kenzie?
Online voting is now open. Andrew, do you want a voice vote?
Yeah, I'll vote aye.
All votes have been entered and the motion is carried. The results of the individual board member votes are as follows. Becker, yes. McCoy, yes. Lyerly, yes. Gerlach, yes. Minno, no. Cannell, yes. Meister, yes.
Right, to 3C, retirement of staff. Lynn, please read the motion.
I move that the retirement of staff as presented be approved.
Second.
Any discussion here? Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. Andrew, do you want a voice vote?
Aye.
All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Move to 3D, the general contractor award. Lynn, please read the motion.
I move that Zize Construction be awarded the bid for the general contractor for the remodel project at Northeast Wisconsin School of Innovation in the amount of $2,761,109 as presented be approved.
Second.
Any discussion? Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Thank you. And with that, we arrive at the end of the agenda for the special board meeting. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're going to take a quick pause before we go into our work session. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started with the work session. Kinsey, will you call roll, please?
Meister,
Here.
Cannell. Here. Minno,
Here.
Gerlach,
Here.
Lyerly,
Here.
McCoy. Here. Becker.
Here.
All right, we have several individuals that have registered to speak this evening. If you have not and you want to speak, there are red sheets that you fill out, present them to Kinsey, and we'll get you scheduled. We will start with Lynn Hebert. Okay, then I'll put him at the back, give him a little bit of time. Then we'll move to Lily Mills. I think I recognize the last name. Okay, so please state your name, your address, and then you'll have 5 minutes.
All right, my name is Lily Mills. I live at 512 Ontario Road, Green Bay. I guess I'll get started then. Hello, everyone. My name is Lily Mills. I'm currently a junior at Green Bay East High School who swims for the Green Bay United Swim Team and Green Bay Swim Club. As our district talks about budget cuts, I'm here to address the topic of closing the pools at both Southwest High School and Edison Middle School on behalf of myself and the teams I represent. To many, these pools just seem like a thing with very little significance and something we could easily go without having in our district. But to me and so many others, it is our home. I spend more time at Southwest than I do my own bedroom. I see these girls I get to call my teammates more than I do my own family. Swimming has been the core of my high school years. The sport and team have taught me both so much in and out of the pool and given me endless opportunities. The early morning practices before school have taught me the importance of dedication, discipline, hard work, and goal making, while my teammates have taught me the never ending value of friendship, laughter, and endless support. The feeling of getting a best time has given me motivation, work ethic, and pure happiness. No matter where I stood on my team, times wise, I never felt less than. These girls have no idea how many times they put a smile on my face when all day I felt like crying instead. These teams have quickly become the reason I am who I am today, and I think everyone needs to experience that. You may be thinking, Lily, you're a junior, you have one more season, why do you care? I care because I want the kids who have thought about swimming even a little to have the same opportunity and chance that I did, a place to learn, grow, laugh, and achieve something worth being proud of. Yeah, swimming is great exercise for the mind and body, but it provides the chance to meet new people, build relationships with teammates and coaches, create friendships that last a lifetime, and give you the confidence to keep working towards greatness. Going into my first practice at Green Bay Swim Club, I knew a total of 3 people. Within the 6 months I've been on this team, that number has grown substantially. This team holds swimmers from surrounding districts, including Green Bay, Ashwaubenon, Pulaski, Howard Swamico, Manitowoc, and De Pere. And every single swimmer is welcomed with open arms and a strive for greatness with the support of an amazing team and coaches. Not only do we grow individually as student athletes with this program, we grow as a community. The swimming community has many different aspects, whether this be as a swimmer on a team, a lifeguard at a local pool, or being a kid who just enjoys the water. There's a place for everyone. However, everyone needs a baseline understanding of water safety. The Edison pool is currently mainly used for gym classes and GBAPSD practices. With the YWCA ending their public swim lesson programs recently, we could use this pool as an opportunity and as a community to give students in our district the chance to learn how to swim. The lifeguard certification sessions that Southwest runs each semester could be used to give back. As a lifeguard, utilizing free courses in summer school could save a kid's life if they're given the chance to learn basic swimming skills. I ask you all before making decisions to think about how many kids' lives this decision will impact, not just for me and my current teammates, but those that will have the chance to find a place they belong taken. It's not just a sport, it's a home and it's a family. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Chris Mariucci.
Hi there. My name is Chris Mariucci. I'm a resident of Green Bay. Both of my children currently attend public school here in Green Bay, both at Washington and at East. And I'm also the president of the Performing Arts Parents Group at East High. I'm here to talk today about the discussion on the cost-cutting options released a number of weeks ago for the budget. Mainly the fact that the Fine Arts Institute at East, as well as other programs at Washington and Webster, are on the chopping block. The idea that the Institute could be cut without any other discussion on return of investment in most other sports programs really does concern me. This is a program that works much like a college major program to focus learning for the students involved in the arts. This program gives many extracurricular opportunities, including but not limited to access to local professionals, experience with the public, and a real path to college. In the words of a couple of our parents, the benefits of the Institute include a place to belong for students of all backgrounds and socioeconomic status.
Where I would struggle to provide these additional and meaningful experiences for my daughter, I know for many of her classmates this is an impossible dream. I have seen the increase in self-confidence and skills through the lessons and experience provided by the Fine Arts Institute. Weekly vocal lessons, trips backstage to the tour of Hamilton, jazz vocal festivals and concerts just being a few. These students have struggled with isolation since COVID, and it's also when instruction in the arts starts. My daughter's a high achieving student, top of her class, much of the extracurricular involvement, 11 groups now. When asked why FAI is important to her, she replied, "Music and the arts are what makes us human. School will pass, but fine arts is lifelong." During the health struggles she had in this last year, fine arts classes and experiences have motivated her to get out of bed and physically get to school most mornings. She could easily achieve the same academics with an online platform, but participating with her peers is so vital to growth and development. From another parent, my oldest child began school years ago at Webster Elementary when she discovered her love and natural abilities for music. She began learning violin in second grade, gradually moving to piano at home when she sounded out her violin songs on the keys and taught herself to play them by ear at home. It was a natural curiosity that drive that made me reach out and ask what additional opportunities may be available to her. Being a single income household and family of 6, resources are extremely limited. As a parent, it's incredibly hard to see such potential and talent, knowing that we didn't have the means to provide resources to help it grow. When we met Lucinda, the president of the Fine Arts Institute, at Webster, and found out that Molly would be eligible for private lessons with Roy Meyer and the Griffin String Quartet, the tears of gratitude simply flowed. This was an opportunity we never could have afforded providing her. Knowing that Lucinda and the GBAPS school district looked at my daughter and saw potential worthy of that financial investment meant so much, especially to my daughter. It made her feel worthy, important, validated, and truly inspired to dig in her heels and work that much harder. So I do fully understand just how much we need to look at cost-cutting opportunities. I know the budget deficits that are coming up. My main concern is the fact that what I've seen, especially on the discussion page that was released, is more needing to find return on investment on the arts and not the discussion of return on investment on most of the other sports programs that are available, especially at East. I don't want to see anything lost. I understand there's got to be some tough cuts, but I want to be able to see something across the board instead of just cutting an entire Institute of the Arts that we invested so heavily in 15 years ago. Really want to make sure that all these children have the opportunity to finish out. My daughter's a middle schooler. She's been accepted into the Institute next year for the theater program. The theater program stands to lose a lot if we lose the Institute. The dance program does not have an independent budget, so our dance program would probably be lost if it weren't for the Institute. It brings me back to my youth when sports got what they needed and the arts suffered. And what we did 15 years ago to start the Institute was something very special to say the arts belongs in our community and our children need an opportunity to really grow, not just in playing in the band, but in looking at possible band education further on the way. This is a college major program. This is something that passes on throughout their formative years and really does focus them for the future. So I hope we can find a common ground in some of these cuts and keep the Fine Arts Institute. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next will be Kelly Rowe.
Hi, my name is Kelly Rowe. I live at 1710 King of Arms Drive. I'm a parent of 3 GBAPS students, a 6th grader at Lombardi, a 9th grader, and a 12th grader at Southwest High School, and I'm here also to speak on the pools. I myself am a proud graduate of Southwest High School and a former Southwest High School swimmer. After high school, I went on to swim in college And my fondest memories from my high school experiences are those memories that took place with my swim teammates at the Southwest High School pool. I am also a 19-year school social worker at Preble High School, so I'm very invested in the children of our school district. All three of my children are swimmers. All three swim for the Green Bay Swim Club, who currently use both the Edison Middle School and the Southwest High School pool for their nightly practices. The two high schoolers also swim for the Green Bay United team. When we heard that closing the district pools was on the list of potential budget-saving measures, our family was shocked and devastated. My freshman son and senior daughter immediately sprung into action, both sitting in our living room texting their Green Bay United teammates to come up with a plan to speak at the district's upcoming listening sessions. They were determined to make their voices heard and to help. Sorry, I lost my spot. They were determined to make their voices heard and to help the decision makers understand how important the swim team is to each and every one of them. The parents in the room were filled with pride as we watched our children from schools throughout the city stand up to share how much the sport of swimming means to them and to respectfully ask the district decision makers to not close their pools. Swimmers are family is something that was repeated over and over that evening. Swimming is often one of the lesser recognized sports. They don't necessarily get the crowds that the football and basketball games get, or the same media coverage in the community as the other sports. But their work ethic, commitment, and drive is second to none. If you look, you will see that the high school swimmers are amongst the top achievers at any school. I can guarantee it. These kids spend more time with each other than they do their own families. They push each other, rely on each other, laugh together, celebrate together, and cry together. And I'm going to leave you with a story that I was trying to write out, and I'm like, I'm just going to wing it. So my son is a freshman at Southwest, and Lily spoke so eloquently about the girls' team, but there was an experience that I witnessed as a parent this a couple weeks ago. The high school boys were finishing up their last practice of the season, and I had to go pick up my son because he's in ninth grade and can't drive yet, and I was waiting in the car for him to come out and waiting and waiting and waiting. And finally, I went in the building, and I was on the pool deck, and all I saw was a bunch of teenage boys ranging from 18 to 14 hugging and crying because they mean so much to each other. And to see that amongst a bunch of boys, you don't see that usually. It was so impactful to see the amount of emotion with them and how dedicated they are to each other. And just seeing that and knowing what the swim team brought out in my son, that is irreplaceable. The touching moment of seeing how much those boys mean to each other and how much they work together, I can't even put into words. So I know that, like several have said, that there's budget cuts that need to happen. And I know that you'll have to make very difficult decisions, but I'm just asking to please, please, please not get rid of our programs. The Green Bay Swim Club uses Edison every night. They're there tonight. They use Southwest High School and the Green Bay United Swim Team that brings together district or high schools from throughout the district use Southwest. That's their competition pool and they need it. So please do not close our pools. Thank you.
Thank you. Has he arrived? You can. Yes, absolutely.
My name is Jessica Hebert. We live at 530 Brookridge Street. My husband is coincidentally at Webster Elementary School right now. He's helping out with the musical. He's helping all the kids with the production of Into the Woods that they're presenting this week. So I would like to talk on the topic of potentially closing the Fine Arts Institute as well. There are many studies that show the arts improve school attendance, boost GPAs, reduce disciplinary issues, and foster community engagement. The same studies also show students with arts involvement are more likely to be academically recognized and less likely to drop out of school in the long run. These are the kids you want to be here and want to come here. Washington and East have had less than ideal reputation for a long time, but through the work of many caring teachers, staff, and parents, the schools are turning that reputation around. taking away the fine arts program isn't going to help that shift continue. Something to consider. The arts are more than just 5 paths: music, visual arts, literary arts, theater arts, and dance. You also have to think of all the kids who do not like the spotlight, but work with their hands behind the stage and off stage to design, build, produce the performance. These kids are working with their hands to make the world a better place. These kids will design and build our future. I have a challenge for this board. Before making any decisions on what to potentially cut, come to the performance of Into the Woods at Webster this week. Watch them perform and see what they can do in such a short time as elementary school kids. Walk through the school and look at the artwork in the halls. You have an amazing program already set up and running here in front of you. If you can honestly look those kids in the eye and tell them they are not worth the investment, then we would really need to all look deeper into ourselves. The kids that participate in this program want to be in school. Please do not give them another reason to not want to walk through these doors every day. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, I think that concludes public forum, and I want to step back because I failed to introduce a couple of people at the table. We have students from the Inner City Student Council. Want to introduce yourself?
Chanel Leopold, Green Bay Purple.
Lola Daphner, Green Bay East.
Thank you for being here, and as always, feel comfortable engaging in the conversation. Okay, so next up, we'll talk through strategic planning. Am I turning it over to David or to Mike? Mike? Mike Freeze coming to the table to talk in my vein, thriving workforce.
We're doing a bit of a flipped classroom. We started this last month with sharing with the board a video of the strategic priority and giving them time to develop questions and have this time in work session be more interactive and discussion based. So we'll turn it over to the board for questions. Or Mike, did you?
Yeah, Mike, you want to introduce it and then we can go.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks, everybody. Hi, thanks again for being here and giving us the opportunity to provide an interim update on our thriving workforce strategic direction. My name is Mike Freeze. I work in the Human Resources Department. I'm joined at the table this evening by our Director of Human Resources, Mai Vang, as well as our Paraprofessional Development and Effectiveness Coordinator, Emily Heil. They both played an important role in tonight's voiceover slide deck and the accompanying memo that we provided the Board of Education. This again is our interim update around the thriving workforce strategic direction. And before we give you a chance to ask any questions at all, we do have the slides that were available. And so we focus tonight primarily on the areas of employee attendance, workplace safety, professional learning, and then some of the work being done related to our retention efforts overall. So would you like us to go over any particular slides? Would you like us to remind everybody of any of the data that we're seeing, or would you like us to just pause and give you a chance to ask questions? What would work best?
I'm going to open up to the table and see if there are any board members that have specific questions or want a specific review. The hard thing is sometimes these things are so comprehensive that we get what we need out of watching these things. So unless we have some, specific questions, it may feel like this is not as interactive as we sell it to be. Lynn?
I don't have any questions, but I just want to assure you that I watched every minute of it and that I was very impressed that you are very clear about exactly what your goals are, and you've broken them down into steps forward and you're moving forward, and I really appreciate that. So don't think if I don't ask questions that I didn't look at it or that I don't care.
Jeanette?
Yes, I agree with Lynn. It was very comprehensive. It was well done, and I really appreciated it. And it's saving us quite a bit of time here at the table. So, and if you listen to it at 1.5 times speed, you get through faster, but you still get all the information you need to. It was very well done, and I appreciate the effort. Thank you.
Well,
and then, I get to hear me sound a little bit like Alvin and the Chipmunks, I suppose. I am wondering because, board, we did provide you this information, prior, or kind of, it came out on Friday where we had to do some work in advance, but actually on Friday, Emily was, had the pleasure of, facilitating a professional learning session that was pretty unique. We haven't had this opportunity before. Would it be okay if I advanced to that slide and had her talk for a little bit about that aspect?
Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Heil. I have the privilege and honor right now of being the Paraprofessional Development and Effectiveness Coordinator for the district, which is a grant-funded position for 2 years. On Friday, we got to host our first ever paraprofessional development that was strictly for paraprofessionals in the district. We had over 1/3 of our paras attend, which is roughly 120 people. And I had to sub today, so I haven't had a full chance to review all of our feedback, but everything looked overwhelmingly positive. And while I was subbing today at Baird, I had someone find me in the building just to let me know how much she appreciated that paraprofessionals are getting their own training and development for the first time.
Laura, did you have?
I just want to second what was already said. I'm really enjoying these videos. I'm getting a lot out of them, and I like that I can go back if I don't feel like I got it the first time. I can go back and listen again, and or pause it and look at the data that you supply. And that is, as far as how I tend to learn things, that's really particularly helpful. I also like the fact that now I have a better idea of how many pairs we have. You know, like the numbers really help me see the scope of the work. And those are just some of my thoughts, but again, I'm really appreciating this kind of presentation.
Commissioner Byer?
For the public, the video will be posted tomorrow morning on YouTube.
Andrew?
Yeah, I would echo what others have said. My lack of questions is a sign that I'm not worried about anything they have to ask you about. There's some good positives here. I did take note of the employee attendance increasing last year to this year, as well as the the new educators onboarding input, which was already pretty strong, with a little bit of an uptick this year. So that's also good to see. So thank you.
Sorry, Alex.
No, I actually have two questions. The first question is, the 14% reduction in claims. Can you tell me specifically, I'm not sure if I missed it, can you clarify or confirm what that is attributed to?
Sure. Let me see if I can talk and click at the same time here. So one of the pieces that we had shared at the very beginning of the school year related to staff workplace safety was that we had a baseline and then a goal for this first year. As you can see, we won't quite hit our goal, but we are making good progress overall in terms of raising education and preventative efforts to prevent workplace related injuries. So the number of claims that have dropped, we believe, are an indication that employees are encouraged to not only be proactive in their efforts. At the beginning of the year, we talked about de-escalation training for all staff to reduce the risk of escalated situations that could result in employee injury, as well as conversations that we have with our food service department around material handling, slips, trips, and falls, and that nature. We also do a monthly safety check. We move through different schools. We bring department directors and we work with school principals to take a look at their facility and talk about their workplace-related injury data from previous years to try to identify any areas of particular interest or concern or things that they want to highlight about the improvements that they've made. Over 85% of our incidents don't result in any medical treatment needed. And I think we've only had 5 total situations this year that resulted in any lost time from work. And so even though we do have what may look like a large number of incidents being reported, we do encourage all staff to fill out an accident report if they have one, so we can look into it to make the workplace safer and to see if there's any trends or any themes that are sticking out that could support planning in the future.
So to clarify my question, do we have a number of if there was 30 less physical incidences from students, 20 less falls? Do we have any of those numbers to clarify what the reduction of 14% is? Because that's a meaningful reduction. So I'd like to know if it has more to do with how students are behaving and our approach to that. If it has more to do with people not falling as much or whatever it may be.
Sure, what I may need to do is provide you that in a written follow-up, if that's okay. I know we've been looking at month by month how things are going up or down. And so this year, October was our roughest month so far, but the other months are better. Last year, October wasn't so bad, but December jumped, I think. So we'll get you that as a follow-up. I appreciate the question.
Thank you. And then my other question was with the professional learning. I was just curious. It kind of appears as though there were kind of the typical thing, which was a menu of options provided for staff to choose from, which is better than just point blank, this is what you're getting. But I was just curious if there is either an opportunity or do you foresee an opportunity where staff are going to get to say, hey, I want to do this, I need this, and then we get that for them?
Sure. I think to be clear, we've tried to just highlight some vignettes or examples from different employee groups. It's certainly not fully comprehensive. We don't currently have a setup as a district of like that employee choice where they can pick from a menu overall. But what we try to create is differentiation options. I think what you see in the office personnel clerical one, as well as what Emily was talking about. In fact, Emily, can you talk a little bit about the choice that people had when they got to participate?
Yes, absolutely. So for the paraprofessional development, we looked at what people have been requesting throughout our paraprofessional mentoring sessions, and then we tailored our breakout sessions to what we know that the rest of the paraprofessionals haven't had already. And those included trauma-informed practices, restorative practices, behavior focus. Connect Before Correct was one that was attended by over 60 people. Prompting and visuals for intellectual disability students. We also had a class that focused specifically on autism. And then we also had a class that focused on supporting academic success for our special education students.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, there we go. Hi. So in addition to gathering input from the paraprofessionals in the mentoring program, we also did survey our administrative leaders and letting us know what the paraprofessionals in their building would benefit from as it relates to professional development. So just adding that in.
And am I incorrect in reading this that when we're looking at some of the portions related to professional learning, this was for staff as a whole? I mean, I think I saw it said 100% of full-time staff. The stuff in here wasn't just for the paraprofessionals, correct?
That's correct. We chose to highlight an example that our office personnel or clerical staff had a chance to engage in, a highlighter on the paraprofessional work, the educators, in a couple of different realms, and focusing on the literacy work that's been done, as well as the work that Mai did in trying to connect with our new educators to see what else they might be reflecting on in their needs.
Awesome, thank you, and I appreciate clarification. And I would just put in continued push to advocate for staff, for teachers to be able to have choice that they initiate, not a menu that they get to choose from, but to be able to have the opportunity to say, "Hey, this is what we need. This is what we need to work on. Can you, district, make that happen for us?" Opposed to the alternative. So, with that.
Thank you. Mai, would you mind summarizing a little bit what you've heard from the new educators this year in terms of what they've also articulated as their needs? I've got that slide showing as well as the next one I can share as well.
Yeah, so as you know, a lot of our hires, not a lot, but we do have some educators that start on the first day of school. So one area of improvement is how can we better onboard our educators who are starting later, since a lot of the professional development happens during the summer where they're not meeting with students. But the positive that we've had is with our new educator induction in the summer, we have been able to differentiate a lot of the sessions to focus more on what are our elementary educators needing versus our secondary versus special education, and how do we differentiate the technology for each of those different areas. So that's been a very good positive feedback that we weren't able to do the year before.
Samantha?
Thank you. Looking at I think it's one or two slides off of this one, the one of the attendance at the ongoing mentorship elements of it throughout the year. I just had a couple of questions on that in terms of obviously that one, there you go. The August sessions are required. And then the stark drop off of attendance throughout there in terms of mentorship ongoing on that monthly basis as the year progresses. So I know it was discussed in here. Obviously, these are non-compensated. There's a lot of scheduling conflicts with these. I'm just curious to know a little bit more about, I know in your next steps, it talked about that there was discussion of a significant redesign of this process. So that's one of my questions. My second question is to think about what processes are in place if there is a new staff member who's assigned a mentor and there is a mismatch between those two, and what opportunities do they have in order to be better aligned with perhaps a different mentor that is able to support them throughout the year.
Mai has been working with Marie on conversations around the sorts of redesign options that are out there. Some of them are resource dependent for sure. And with regards to the mentor-mentee mismatch, yeah, like that does happen at times. And really it's about open communication and trying to understand, is that something that can be solved because it's a logistical mismatch? Like, hey, I know you're the only family consumer and I'm the only family consumer at this school and it's really impossible for our schedules, versus maybe there's a dynamic that's just not working out in the building. We have found opportunities to provide access to a different or alternative mentor. It's not unlike when you have a student teaching placement. Sometimes you look for how do you keep improving to get the best fit. So we do have a way of addressing that. And I don't know, Maya, if there's anything you wanted to add about the conversations on potential redesigns, or if the slides speak for themselves, but go ahead if you like.
Yeah, there's nothing spoken in concrete yet, but we are potentially looking at implementing like an asynchronous class in Canva to allow our educators to go online and interact with each other on their own time versus having them come at a set time of the month where we know, oh, Wednesdays they absolutely can't, or they can't find a babysitter. So that's a potential option, but we're always open to other ideas too.
Other questions? Right. Thank you very much, Mike. Bye. Okay, with that, we will move on to 4A, the Head Start continuation application. Superintendent Byer.
Our district Head Start program is entering its second year of our 5-year grant cycle. We have a strong legacy of providing comprehensive early childhood education in this district, and the grant underscores our commitment to ensuring equitable access and high quality instruction at a young age. It's a student-centered approach, strong family partnerships. Lynn, as you well know, is the advocate for that program, and ongoing program innovation. Our Head Start remains a leader in early learning in our district. Ongoing flat funding from the federal government is going to result in a needed reduction of $150,000 from the program. The following is proposed by the Head Start team to protect core service and student-facing roles. The recommended changes are Youth Apprentice Program. This program will no longer continue in Head Start. A reduction in the FTE for education services coaching for the program, a reduction from 2.0 to 1.5. Parent education, the current model will be reorganized and therefore includes the reduction of one staff position. This puts the focus where it needs to be, not reducing, directly impacting the children in the classroom, and continuing with what we expect from our Head Start program. Lynn, do you want to add anything?
The only thing I would add is that I've had 3 years of working with our Head Start program and find it just absolutely amazing. And we have 2 very fine administrators, and I have had a chance to talk with one of them about these. Of course, one of them is on maternity leave. She had a beautiful baby girl a few weeks ago. But the other one, we've had a chance to talk through these things, and they seem, pretty confident that this is the answer and they're going to be fine.
Any other board discussion, questions? All right.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go into operations then. Jeanette, are you going to run operations this evening?
So 5A E-rate edge switching recommendation. Are we going to have Amy? I don't, oh, she's virtual. Okay. Yeah, I thought I saw her picture up there. Regarding the E-rate category 2 edge switching. So can we get her? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. If you hear from her, let us know. So this is why we need new switches. Is that what we're supposed to take from this? This is a setup. No,
Yeah.
they're very slow.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear us?
Yes, but you're going to be slow a little bit, so we'll see how it goes.
Okay. Okay. Well, we're appreciative that we can join in virtually. We wish we were on site with maybe some better internet. We're here to chat today about edge switching, a request to make purchase connected with E-rate and a part of our department budget. After reviewing the memo that was provided, are there any specific questions that you would like us to address?
Board. Lynn?
I just want to tell you that I read this memo. I did not know what edge switching was until I read this memo. It made perfect sense. I understand it now. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for that feedback. Okay. Any other questions we can address?
Doesn't seem like anybody has any other questions, so.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you
Thank
for
you so
waiting
much.
for us to get back online.
All right, we'll go on to 5B, middle school science resource adoption, and is that, you know who you are, David, and everyone else who's joining him. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Angela Combe. I'm the Director of Curriculum. And with me tonight, I have Lindsay Vandeven. She is a Curriculum Coordinator in Teaching and Learning. David, thank you for having us here tonight. We are here tonight to discuss an adoption for high quality instructional materials in middle school classrooms, middle school science classrooms. We have a recommendation that would come out of our teaching and learning budget for middle school science materials. The name of those materials are CPUP, and Lindsay's going to tell us a little bit more about that in a minute. I'm going to start with just a couple opening remarks, and then Lindsay will provide a few details about the instructional materials and some observations she's had in classes over the past several weeks. And then we'll spend a little time discussing some critical feedback that we've received from teachers as well. So I wanted to just start by reading the first sentence of our instructional vision. It reads, "We provide high quality, engaging, affirming, and meaningful instruction that meets every student's needs, grounded in grade level standards." And we're here tonight because we believe we have found a high quality instruction material that will support teachers in being able to live out this vision within the classroom. We know that high quality instruction materials can positively support students in their academic achievement, But it's also critical that as a district, we make sure that we move forward with this adoption with intentionality. Intentionality in the selection process, intentionality in professional learning for our teachers, intentionality in communication, and intentionality with aligning to district goals. And so tonight we'd like to share some of the intentionality that we've had over the past about a year and a half as we've reviewed high quality instruction materials and then tried those out in classrooms. One of our strategic goals as a district is to ensure that 73% of our students earn credits in AP, dual credit, or IB classes. And we believe that high quality instructional materials can play an important role in this. We know that in our science pathways in high school, we're very fortunate because we have many of these classes. And we want to get the energy started in middle school. We want students to be excited about science. And so one of the ways we can do that is ensuring that they have materials and instruction that's going to get them excited about science classes so they want to take those higher level science classes in their high school years. I'll just end my opening comments with one short story. Many of you know that I am a parent of two GBAPS students. And the other night I had the opportunity to hear a little bit from my son and his friends. He is an 8th grader, and his teacher was part of the trial that Lindsay supported. And I was driving him home with some of his friends from basketball practice, and they were chatting about usual 8th grade things. And then one of them noticed the moon outside the car window, and they're like, "Hey, it's a full moon." And then one of them said, "No, wait, it can't be a full moon because yesterday was a full moon, and full moon only lasts for one day. So it must be and then they went on to discuss things that happened in their science class. And I say this to share that I don't often get to hear 8th grade boys talk about science, and especially on the way home from basketball practice. So I think that's the excitement that I really would want all of our students to experience when they're in their science classes, so that they leave and they're like, I want to talk about this with my friends in the car on the way home from basketball. And so to share a little bit more observations and details about our the adoption that we're hoping that you'll consider, Lindsay's going to share a little bit more.
Hi everyone, I'm Lindsay Vandeven. I am the Science Curriculum Coordinator here in Green Bay, as Angie mentioned. And I'm here to tell you just a little story of how we got to this point where we are proposing CPUP for our middle school science classrooms. And this is really a story that started with listening to our staff and to our students and finding out what was working in our middle school classrooms and where we had opportunities to strengthen that middle school instruction. And what I learned from those conversations was that we had a very deep desire for our students to learn science actively, to learn that science by doing science. And this matters because not only does it help our students engage, right, and be interested in what it is they're learning, but it is called for directly in our science standards in the state of Wisconsin to have our students not only learning content, but skills. And this is a change from when we were learning science, where the emphasis was on content, right? Learn a fact and make sure you can repeat it. But in 2013, our national standards, which is what our state Wisconsin standards are based on, changed. They updated, and they created 3 different strands. The first is our disciplinary core ideas, which is what scientists know. Our second strand are the science and engineering practices, what scientists do. And then the third strand is the cross-cutting concepts, which are big ideas that go across all different domains of the science field, right? So things like cause and effect. And what we realized is that CPUP as a product meets the rigor of our standards and the design and intentionality behind that standard design, so that our students are not only learning the content, but developing the skills and understanding those bigger picture ideas. And one of the ways that I saw this happen was in our 7th grade classrooms. They were piloting or trialing an ecology unit. And part of that unit is food webs, right? So the way I learned about food webs is I read a paragraph and told me what ate what, and then I drew a picture, right? But in this experience, our students were able to investigate through owl pellets, which if you know anything about an owl, right, they eat their food whole, but they can't digest all the parts, so eventually they regurgitate this pellet, and in it is all the bones and the skin and stuff, like you, but also cool. So we had a group of students that were given the pellet, and there were these 2 young ladies who were like, ooh, I'm not touching that, right? They weren't interested at all, and they started off very delicately taking this pellet apart with their tweezers. But by the end of the class period, they were in there with their hands, they were pulling out the bones, the whole group of students was putting the skeletons together, and they were figuring out what this food web was, right? So that is a flashbulb memory for these kids, where they are going to remember that owl food web forever. But CPUP doesn't stop there. It's going to take the idea of food webs and how all these different animals interact within their environment and bring in an invasive species. What does that do to the ecology of this system? And then now, how can we maybe try to mitigate that by going after the invasive species? But wait, there's going to be pros and cons to that approach. So students, what would you do? Right? And so this curriculum not only has the pieces of content we're looking for, but also that skill development that is so key to the field of science, and also just to any stage of life where we are working together and trying to problem solve. So I am also a parent of Green Bay students. They're only in elementary school, but this is the type of curriculum that I'm very excited for my children to learn from someday. Thank you.
And we, as Lindsay shared, she was able to experience those things because we have been doing a trial for a number of weeks in our middle school classrooms. And teachers graciously opened up their doors to us, and so we were able to visit with them, with their students, and to see things in action. And this piece is so critical because it goes back to that intentionality, being intentional about our selection. And part of that is ensuring that we do have a teacher trial so that we can receive input from teachers. One, because we want to be able to make changes in the moment to see if we can improve things. Two, to think about down the road. We don't want an implementation to just last for a year and then teachers not feeling as if they're supported. We want to make sure that we can sustain this implementation over time for our students and our teachers. And so the input that teachers give us during this time is critical to the decisions that we make. So Lindsay did a great job of sending out a survey to students and teachers, as well as having individual one-to-one wrap-up meetings with teachers that participated in the trial. And there was a ton of positive feedback about CPUP. There was also some critical feedback. Two pieces kind of stand out. One would be the need for some strategies around how to teach vocabulary. Vocabulary is something that's going to be a big part of the science work that students will do. And so the discussion about what are some strategies that we could use to be able to prepare for that as we would use this in the future. Another piece that came up was a change from having a full class set of student materials. So I'm going to refer to it as a textbook, but Lindsay's going to help me explain what that is in a minute. A change from having a full class set to a half class set. That recommendation is in line with the recommendation from CPUP. It's designed so that students are able to collaborate with each other because they are, as Lindsay said, doing that hands-on science. This is in alignment with our neighboring districts like Appleton and Sheboygan, who have recently adopted CPUP as well. And teachers did, rightly so, express some hesitation during the conversations with Lindsay because this is a change. And so it is going to be different. However, they really also had some great conversations around what are some strategies or things that we could try. And they also said, you know, we were hesitant before the trial, but once we got into it, we didn't really, it went a little bit better than what we thought it was going to. And so that hesitation kind of faded away a little bit. So those were the two kind of pieces of critical feedback that we received. And Lindsay's going to share just a little bit more about the textbook piece as well.
Sure. Okay, so what I wanted to make sure that we all shared was an understanding of what we mean when we talk about a CPUP textbook. So this is one of the textbooks in the program. There are 5 for each grade level because there's one per unit. But this is not a traditional textbook. It's not designed to have students take it home, do an assignment out of it, and come back the next day. This is designed for students to work collaboratively. Think of it almost like a lab manual and follow this guidance for their group work as they are conducting investigations. So CPUP really leans heavily on this 4-2-1 group model where students are in groups of 4 and that group is responsible for certain aspects. Then there'll be items the pairs, the 2 are responsible for, and then there'll be items the 1 student is responsible for. And so this collaboration piece is also a soft skill that we know is very important to the study of science and that will help our students, again, be successful in life as they go through whatever field or experience they might, that they're working with others. So the intentional design of this is to encourage students to work together in that group format and collaborate around group sense making as they engage in investigations. Okay.
So those are the talking points that we wanted to share with you tonight, but hopefully maybe you have some discussion that you'd like to, or questions that you'd like to ask us.
Lynn?
Thank you so much. And science is not my thing, but that was, I understand. And you talked about intentionality. And I just want to go over one thing, because the one thing, I don't know about the rest of the board, but the one thing I've been hearing is this ridiculous it is to have only half enough textbooks for half the class. And as a former teacher, my first instinct was, yes, that's crazy. Are we just trying to save money? But now I hear you saying that that is built into it intentionally so that students will learn to collaborate in science. And I just want you to reaffirm that, because that's the one thing everybody's upset about. And you say that the teachers who piloted this found that it did work in that way, correct?
Yes, exactly. Can you remind me how many teachers were in the?
Yeah, so we had 9 teachers in the trial across all the different middle schools within the district. And there were individuals who were very nervous about it as they began, and as they worked through the trial, they developed different strategies and saw how it worked for their students. And there were some trial participants who at the end said this was no issue at all. So our students were able to learn and collaborate, and they saw that group work being supported by the design.
Does anybody else have any other questions? Alex?
I guess I'll be a little bit contradictory. I do have some feedback that there were some concerns by students and by at least a teacher who was part of piloting this. And, you know, like Lynn being a teacher, but even more importantly, being a middle school teacher in our district recently for a long time, sometimes, and I had experiences very similar where we adopted new technology, new curriculum, and some of the content that I taught. And, you know, you want kids to be able to have certain skills, soft skills in particular, um, with and utilize materials in certain ways. Um, but the reality is there's so much more that goes into their ability to do that. Everything from now we have increased class sizes. We've kind of moved more towards a full inclusion model. Um, there's less aids. I mean, there's so many different things that impact kids' ability to function. So our kids, our students, haven't had the chance to pilot this with half as many textbooks, and you know, I have major concerns that that's not necessarily realistic. It's not as apples and apples to comparison. And quite frankly, I'd rather just spend the extra 75 to 100 grand and on a full set or closer to a full set than and even consider reducing the 1-to-1 of the computers. You know, if there's a way that we have to factor in offsetting costs, than I would in only having half the textbooks for middle school age kids. Those soft skills are not as realistically applicable and really function the way we ideally want or hope they do at that age. It, as they get older, it starts to happen, but at middle school, I found that that's just not very common a lot of times. So,
Anyone else? James?
So I hear Alex, but what I heard from you is the question is not the number of textbooks, right? It feels like the decision is, do we accept the model, which is a 4-2-1 model, and therefore they cluster around the kit that enables that, or we don't, right? Because if we throw more textbooks into the classroom, but still the expectation is a 4-2-1, are we just saying that there will be some people that would be pulled out of that kind of model to work individually if we had more textbooks? I guess that's the question I have for you.
Yeah, our belief is that we want to invest in the half class set so that we can adhere to the model that is recommended, so that students are engaging around the pulling apart of the owl pellet and doing those hands-on science pieces, and building on that collaboration piece.
Go ahead.
I'm a big science nerd, and one of the things I got to do is work with third and fourth graders in a stream and survey for macroinvertebrates. And like you wouldn't think that they could show teamwork, but they were all so patient with each other and the stuff that they were handling. And getting to do that hands-on thing really made me go from liking science to loving it and wanting to pursue it in the future. So I think it's really cool that that's an idea.
Sorry, that's the excitement that we're hoping that many more students are going to experience. So thank you for sharing that experience.
Thank you so much. Alex, let's get Andrew first.
I guess I would share some of that concern too. I think I hope if we what we want to do is have partner work in science, we should be able to do that, and our teachers should be able to do that without having to force it to happen by sharing of books. I can see there could be any number of reasons that it might be better for someone to have their own copy of the book, even if they're working together in partners. I guess that would be my concern. I just don't know if, and especially if, and I'm saying if we're in a situation where we have increased class sizes, is that going to be a concern as well, that we might be short books and not even have one to two? I guess to me, sharing shouldn't be cooperative work shouldn't be a forced thing because there's half the number of books as there are kids.
Just to respond to one piece of that, the number that we would be providing would be 15. So that would be for a class of 30, just to clarify that point.
Alex, do you have another question?
Well, I guess more so a comment, and please understand too, I looked at all the things that the information you submitted, and I see overwhelming support for the curriculum. I love what it is, and I'm totally in favor of it, but I'm coming at it from the realities of a day-to-day classroom across many different varieties of classrooms. And if you only have 15 for a class of 30, you leave yourself no wiggle room for those classes, which can be many across our district, that have additional needs, and it leaves you no flexibility to adjust if you don't have extra sets on hand, even if it doesn't mean going to a full set. But if you have 3 or 4 or 5 kids, or 2 or 3 groups in a class that it just can't work for 20 different reasons that could realistically happen, then you're left with no options. And I don't want to see us start off by putting ourselves in that boat. It seems senseless. Why not have the opportunity to have the other amount available as needed, even if it's not a full set? I guess is kind of part of my perspective.
Yeah, I thank you for your perspective on this, and I would just add that we do still believe that there will be flexibility, though, because with our purchase we are having online access, and so if there was a situation as you're describing that we know does happen in middle schools where a student is not able to engage in collaboration in that particular day, we do have the platform available online, and so we would be able to offer that to students as well, and they would have the same materials as it would in the student book here. That would also work for maybe a student who was absent that day. They would be able to access that online, as well as CPUB does a great job of having videos of the labs in case a student was absent. So there is some level of flexibility as well beyond the model, which is to have the half class set and the 4-2-1.
Sam?
Just a couple of questions about the professional learning piece of this. I noted in the memo, it said that there was just this past February, the large shift from moving from consumable to science notebooking, and that is a pretty significant change. And my question is, understanding that, our staff is adjusting to this new way of doing things without a consumable, and potentially and likely going to need a good deal of adjustment and professional learning around, again, how to use these new resources, especially because it's not a one-to-one student model there. I didn't explicitly see that built into the professional learning cycle that was in the very end of the memo, and I'm just wondering where you see that fitting, and if there is this focus on intentionality, how are we making sure we're supporting our teachers and staff in rolling this out in a way that makes them want to keep using it after year one?
Yeah, thank you for that. Well, I am very confident in Lindsay, and she started off by saying something really important at the beginning of her comments, and that was listening. And so as we worked out the professional learning plan, I did ask her to keep it more general because one of the things we want to be able to do is have flexibility. So we know that notebooking, we know that hands-on experiences more often in the classroom are going to be changes for teachers. And so Lindsay has done a really nice job of setting up a network of teachers through the trial teachers that she's worked with and then some additional teachers to be able to keep a pulse on what's happening in the classroom. And the reason we didn't call out specifics within the board report is because we want to be able to have some flexibility. If at the end of the first year, notebooking is going great, because there are many teachers who are doing notebooking already in our district. If that's going great, and then we need to maybe focus on that vocabulary piece a little bit more, we wanted to be able to have flexibility to switch in the topic. However, I think what's going to be important is, just like we've done in math and world language, to be able to support consistently for a number of years versus a traditional model, which was maybe a 1 or 2 day training at the beginning. So we commit to listening to teachers and then adjusting, but staying supportive throughout, whether that means Lindsay joining classrooms, listening, supporting with department chairs. We do have a few avenues that, as you noted, we didn't call all of those out in the board report, but definitely we need to make sure that we are staying true to that.
Lynn, go ahead.
And I've been listening to this and I appreciate input from someone who's been a middle school teacher because I've never taught middle school. And I want to make sure that I'm clear on two things. One is that this CPUP program was meant to be collaborative, the 4-2-1 model, and that is the reason that you have enough kits for half the class and enough textbooks for half the class. That is intentional.
The textbooks are the only half class set. The kit is designed for the groups, but it's not necessarily a half class set model. It's enough materials for the class. 8 groups of 4 students.
And the other thing is that I think I hear you say that if there is a student who on that particular day is not going to work well with that model and collaboratively, that having online access will take the place of having a physical textbook.
Yes, the online support could provide flexibility.
That is somewhat of an alternative. I do have so-called newfound fears though, because we no longer have any monitoring systems that teachers have had for a while now to monitor student computer use on their computer while they are teaching, helping other kids. So now you have a situation which I lived before we had that program, or at least the earlier years, where kids have their computers, they can pretty much go on and do what they want, and you don't really know for sure that they are engaged in those materials. And especially when you get, with larger class sizes, which is more the norm now, it's very hard to effectively monitor, that the kids are staying engaged with their materials. The other question I have is, when the pilots were done with, I think you said 8 or 9, maybe, did any of them pilot it with just the half set, or did they pilot with a whole set?
All of them piloted it with the half set.
And then, sorry, I forgot my other question.
All right, is there anything else? I have a question and a comment. I'm assuming these textbooks aren't like textbooks that kids really have to read. I'd love to look at it, but we'll get to that. And I just want to say the thing about the owl palette, I love looking for those, and when I find them in the woods, I get so excited, and my husband is like, that is so gross. So it's fun.
I think the whole idea of the soft skills is really cool because I've helped lead the same field trip with 3rd and 4th graders and then also my peers who are high schoolers. And I think maybe bridging the gap in that soft skill in between the two would be important because yeah, I just think that would be important because you can kind of see the difference in how they view teamwork as 3rd and 4th graders versus as high schoolers. And I think a more consistent idea of what teamwork means would be important. And it sounds like that program could encourage that.
I did just want to mention one thing, if you are a fan of owl pellets. We had a video that we put together with different clips from the trial classrooms. And if you get a chance to view that, I believe it's coming to you soon, you'll see some snippets of students working with the pellets and then the skeletons that they built afterwards. So just to let you know.
We've got one more question. Oh, maybe two. Let's let Alex go and then Andrew.
I remembered my question. Hopefully my last question is there any reason not to invest in a few extra for each classroom?
I think it goes back to the concept of what we're trying to accomplish with it. So staying true to the design of the program is our main reason for that.
So not having any extra ones available for when there are circumstances where that model cannot work for that particular class is not an option.
No, I wouldn't say that it's not an option. I mean, I'm not sure if that came out right, but.
Andrew?
I'm sorry, if Lindsay just reminded me of one thing. We also do purchase some extra, so we would have some available in the library as well as the warehouse in case that there, of course we lose materials and different things happen. So we always do have a few extra on hand as well. So that could be another option.
So when there's major behavior issues with kids getting along, when there is a student with a particular disruptive disability or something, and all sorts of other myriad issues, our one solution is to hopefully hope that the online program works. That's it.
We're adopting a science curriculum for all students to be successful, and all supports that we have in place, regardless of the curriculum area, what materials we're using, we would use to support students, as you just described, Mr. Minow.
Okay, and I just want to be sure that I'm clear here. Now, this is the one textbook per two students. Is that the standard offering of CPUP, or is this something that we're doing that is or is it an option for cost savings?
It is the recommendation from CPUP, and it is what the majority of districts that utilize it, as I mentioned, Appleton and Sheboygan are neighboring districts who also have gone with half-class sets to honor the model. However, CPUP would certainly let us purchase additional textbooks.
Okay, but CPUP would say our standard model is half sets in classrooms. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we spent a lot of time on this, so I think we probably should move on, unless somebody has something really burning. All right, thank you, really appreciate that. And I'll hook up with somebody to look at those books at sometime in the very near future. Thank you. All right, so let's go on to 5C, Central Office Strategic Priority Alignment.
All right, thank you. Board, and to the public, the next 4 items are coming to the table tonight as a result of a public school funding system that isn't adequately supporting our public schools. There are 421 school districts in the state of Wisconsin, the majority having to regularly go to referendum because the funding isn't adequate. So when the board has to make difficult decisions, which thank you for those folks that acknowledged how difficult it must be for them to have to do this, I can tell you it brings them no pleasure to have to make cuts that impact directly our students and our staff. And as I've shared with the public and with our staff, we've been making cuts for the last 5 years to address the inadequate funding in the state of Wisconsin. And in my opinion, we've cut everything we possibly can to the point where now there will be negative impact. And the only thing that's going to change that, and this is the opinion of Vicki Beyer, is to start taking a look at the people we elect to represent us in Madison and start looking at those that support public ed. Board, If you refresh your board docs, you will now find the documents. My apologies to the board and to the public, but we've been working tirelessly on these memos, and our team wanted to make sure everything in them is accurate for public consumption. So you now have access to the 4 memos that represent the next 4 agenda items. David, do you have the clicker? You want to go for it? So we're going to start off with the central office alignment and staffing review. This should be done annually. It's taking a look at the employees that we have at district office that maintain a district the size of ours. And we have to, in this process, you want to click it twice more, David, take a look at our strategic priorities along with our external pressures that we've been facing. Again, we aren't the only district, but gradual enrollment declines across the nation, corresponding revenue reductions, inadequate public school funding, and the shifting regulatory mandates. So as we look at our staff at central office, these are things we consider. How do we continue to support the district priorities while also dealing with a budget that doesn't help us do that? Next one, please. We partnered with Hanover Research to analyze our central office staffing. And what we discovered is where I thought we would be. Our executive staffing levels are appropriately scaled and proportional to the size and complexity of our district. But we wanted to dig in a little bit further. That was a good start. That's what I wanted to see. Board and public, there is a link in your memo to the research, the results of the research. You will find in that the districts that we've been compared to, they went outside of the state of Wisconsin, so we could get a good number for comparison purposes. Next slide, please.
We asked Hanover to do 2 important things in this study. We asked them to conduct the benchmarking study that Superintendent Beyer just explained. We also asked them a second and related important task, and that was to design and administer a survey of all employees working within the central office, as well as the ASB facility. The intent of that survey was to mine for how well each central office employee understood the goals of the organization, how they saw themselves in that work, whether they had the tools that they needed to be successful in that work, and how they communicated and collaborated with each other, both in their own departments and across departments. Here's some of the things that we learned from the results of that survey. We saw favorable and positive responses to role clarity and having access to the resources that are needed. We also saw the positive perception, specifically with communication. We saw emerging growth in the area of cross-departmental collaboration. That's been an intentional area of focus for us over the last few years. We know that as the team grows and as the work becomes more complex and as we work to do it, just as we're asking across the entire district with fewer staff, we have to really be clear on finding and reducing any kind of redundancies that take place within the organization and continue to include how the departments work together, not just to get their jobs done, but specifically in the service of our strategic priorities and goals. This is work in progress. We've received the results of that survey and have already begun taking action. So we're having data stand-ups with cross-departmental teams to look at data that's relevant to our strategic plan growth. Here you see here you see a group of central office staff members representing various departments and teams looking at screener data relative to ELA and reading and math, K through or 4th through 10th grade, having conversations about rates of progress and growth from fall to winter and talking about their own work in relation to that. The cabinet has also identified some clear strategies and opportunities that we have. So the notes represented on the right are sourced from the cabinet, and that's what directly led to the kind of engagement that you see on the left with a wider group of individuals.
And board and public, you will find a link inside the memo of the survey that we used and the results. And David just spoke of some of the strategies we are using to address the results of the survey. To address the budget deficit over the last 5 years, we've used a couple different strategies that I want to talk through with the board. The first one, David, if you could, is elimination. We've removed roles entirely based on capacity analysis. And we'll share with you the results of how many positions have been removed over the past 5 years to address the budget deficit. We also consolidate not just schools, but also positions. So streamlining responsibilities and combining duties to reduce our overall FTE. The district staff at central office, I don't know if we could find many that aren't now taking on at least 2 roles. And the third is reclassification. We redesign open positions to break down silos, modify workloads, and directly address survey feedback and redundancy, as David spoke of.
With this slide, we're going to take a closer look into one department, and I want to speak to the effect of those 3 strategies that Superintendent Beyer just mentioned. So in the case of the Department of Teaching and Learning, over the past several years, here are some indicators of reductions that have taken place. The impact of this is always fewer people taking on more. And here's some concrete examples, and I'll speak to another one here in a moment. But here we have some areas that, whether you're a district of 1,000 or you're a district of 50,000, you have these programs and activities going on, and they need ongoing support. And so as student enrollment may rise and fall percentage points, the core work that these teams attend to don't necessarily get any less. And so in this reduction period of these positions across the teaching and learning department, we do have this impact of these programs. It does allow us, as Superintendent Beyer said, to really think about reclassification and essentially repackaging roles. We've recently hired someone to focus exclusively on supporting the arts from a curriculum coordinator standpoint, and that is an opportunity that we're going to have to extend support into the field and provide even some disproportionate support to the Fine Arts Academy in the year ahead. I'll remind the board that we're now in the 2nd year of working with an executive leadership team that does not include a deputy superintendent, which had previously been a position in the district.
When we look at central office staffing, we have to take into account unfunded or underfunded mandates that come from either the state or federal government. In addition, we take a look at district priorities and do we have the positions that can help us best meet those priorities. I want to talk through the process that we do and then give you an example of an unfunded mandate that impacted our district. New mandate comes through. We do a workload analysis. We take a look at existing positions to determine where would this best fit. Is there somewhere we can safely absorb this position without impacting the results of the work that needs to be done? And then we do a strategic allocation, which means either we reassign responsibilities with existing FTE or we have to add FTE. So the example there at the bottom, Title IX, which Melissa could speak very well to, recent expansion of the unfunded mandate required highly specialized capacity, requires timely internal investigations, formal grievance procedures, strict adherence to federal due process. We took a look at existing staffing and determined that there is no way we could possibly do this without risking putting the district at legal risk. So we did add a position at that time. Now that position's been with us a couple of years now. An example of a district priority came about 2 years ago when the board told us they wanted us to prioritize teacher retention, and it was the right work to do. We added an FTE to human resources, and as a result, within the second year of having that position, we were able to increase teacher retention in our district to 91.8%. That's the highest teacher retention for an urban school district in the state of Wisconsin. And we were able to do that because of targeted FTE. The impact on the right-hand side, I want to point out, as many of you know, when you have high turnover, that's expensive. So we substantially avoided recruitment and onboarding costs alongside strengthening our instructional continuity. We've made measurable progress in organizational efficiency in the last 5 years at central office, and you can go ahead and click on all of them, David. We've reduced central office administration and manager positions by 10 FTE, supervisor coordinator non-exempt clerical by 6 FTE, building administrator by 6 FTE. That's a baseline savings in the bottom right. It's been well over 3 million, but we haven't figured out how to specifically calculate the additional savings from reclassification. And when I say that, it means maybe we had an executive director position, that position becomes vacated, we post it as a director position. So there's savings in that.
The work continues as we move ahead and as we continuously work to make sure that the size of our central office structure is appropriate to meet the needs of the district and the community. So over this next academic year, these are 6 additional positions. Those are beyond the ones that Superintendent Beyer shared in the last slide. 6 additional positions where we're either consolidating work, reallocating work. All of these positions, by the way, are filled, all of these positions through attrition. We are able to fill the work that is done by these folks and to distribute it to some different individuals.
Moving forward, as we continue to make cuts, and we will continue to make cuts beyond the 6 FTE that you just saw, it's important to monitor the workload of the people that remain. You can go ahead and click the next 2. There are limits to reducing a staff to the point where you end up with burnout and people leave as a result of that. So it will be important for the team to continue to monitor how is the workload going, and are we able to diminish turnover? Because again, as I mentioned earlier, that becomes costly. Oh, could I mention, please, the thriving workforce? I think it's important to remember that thriving workforce is a district priority, and it extends beyond the schools. It includes the people that work in this building and ASB as well. So reductions are driven by systemic challenges. We are looking at the reductions not because we like to do this. We are doing it because there's a gradual enrollment decline, unfunded mandates, and again, inadequate funding from the state legislature for public education. We will continue to advocate for proper funding. We speak with our local legislators on a regular basis. One of the public forum speakers said, look the students in the eye and say they aren't worth the investment. I would encourage you to say that to our state legislators who aren't adequately funding public education, because they are the reason why we are here today looking at places to cut.
In conclusion, this is our commitment. As Superintendent Beyer and I have said numerous times throughout this, the work continues to constantly evaluate and act on opportunities that we see to reduce redundancy and align our staffing with our outcomes as well as the scale and size of our district. Continues to be our promise. Despite systemic funding challenges, we remain steadfast in protecting our strategic priorities. By working smarter and collaborating across departments, we'll work hard toward every student receiving the high quality educational support they deserve.
Thank you so much. Any questions? Comments? Go ahead.
Yeah. Is there a timeline for the whole situation with the school districts and the state? Oh, sorry. Is there a timeline on like when the district can expect to either like win or lose?
Katie, you have an amazing kid. Yeah, you know that, right? Yeah. This November is an important election. We can't wait for the election to make decisions because we are entering the school year, which we'll talk about in the next agenda item, with some needed cuts. I guess November is the timeline. Okay. We could roll this conversation into the next agenda item if you want.
Yeah, that sounds great. But I would add that we have a budget, not a budget, I'm sorry, a surplus, thank you. We have a surplus of 2.5 billion. No, not us, the state, 2.5 billion. That's 1,000 million. That's a lot of money. And we don't need 2.5 billion here. And the entire school system across the state of Wisconsin doesn't necessarily need all of that. But we have been underfunded with no increase for inflation since 2008. We have been under reimbursed for our special education every year. We've been promised a lot of money and it's not coming. And our assembly and our Senate will soon end for the year. And I would say as students, you may not be able to vote if you're not 18 yet, but you can surely write letters to your representatives and your state senators. And maybe representatives who are not your representatives. Just make a blanket letter to every single assembly rep saying, I'm a student and this is what's going to happen. I'd urge the swimming team to do it. I'd urge the fine arts people to do it. I'd urge everyone to do it. Let's give them a big pile. If you ever saw that movie with Santa Claus where he's in court and what do? They bring in that big pile of letters. And you can easily do it without having to pay the 45 cents for mail. You can email them very easily. So I strongly encourage you, let's not wait till November. Superintendent Byer is right. We need to vote, but we also need to put a lot of pressure on them now because they can go back into session. They can do special session and they can vote to give all the schools more money. And we need it. And it isn't because any of us are wasting money in any school district. So we're going to go on to 5D and talk some more about this budget.
Team, if you want to come on over. Parents, students, community members, the memo that we are going to reference for this topic is now in board docs. So if you need to refresh your phone or computer, you'll have access to it. This is part of the team that's been working really hard to make sure we are positioned in the best way possible to support our students and our staff out in the schools. This is a journey on how we got to this point, at least for this school year. As I've mentioned already, we've been working for the last 5 years to reduce our budget, to balance the budget each year. This is the first year we came into one where it wasn't balanced. We'll talk a little bit about that coming up. We as a district office team have been keeping an eye on FTE since the very start of the school year. Actually, we'd probably go into the year before. Reducing, not backfilling if we didn't need to. And then a targeted approach began in January, where we held 3 budget retreats with employee groups from throughout the district. And through those retreats, we developed lists of opportunities for budget reduction. And that's the list that the board now has, and it's the list that all of you saw. We presented that to the board at the February work session. Again, that was produced in collaboration with employee groups throughout the district. Then after we presented that to the board, the very next week, we brought it to the community to get feedback, and we'll talk more about that in a bit. Leadership from the district has been making decisions ongoing. We'll talk about some of those decisions to address the budget deficit, and then we're also going to ask the board to help us in taking next steps from the remaining items on the list. And that's board why you have a hard copy handout. We'll be talking specifically about the table on the last couple of pages. So let's talk about the community feedback. A lot of you in attendance this evening, thank you. You came to the community sessions and your feedback mattered. I'm going to share that now with the Board of Education. Overall, the community desires, just like the Board of Education does, budget reductions that avoid creating a downward spiral that undermines student success, staff quality, equity, or district identity. And what they meant by district identity were the programs that were unique for our district that you can't find, or it would be rare to find in districts around us. They highlighted students first, transparency, so making sure that the board meetings are open to the public and we aren't hiding information. Identity programs was mentioned often. Equity was mentioned often. Teacher retention, which we've highlighted already, but it's important for the community. The community wanted to make sure the board knew how important it was to them. And then putting money into the classrooms, continuing that as a priority for the district. There was clear consensus to protect core investments for the district. Again, this is still community feedback. Southwest High School pool. We had students and family members passionately defend the pools. We were at Southwest, so I think that was the highlight, but both pools were mentioned. We will be bringing forward tonight a proposal for Edison School, their pool. That'll come at, I think, the next agenda item. The public wants class sizes to be maintained at the current board policy level, with particular interest in maintaining at the elementary level, so K through 5. Strong opposition to any drastic benefit reductions, eliminating steps, not offering cost of living adjustments, or increasing workload without compensation. And strong support for preserving the IB program, Fine Arts Institute, AVID, English learner programs, literacy support, and the student summits. I wanted to pause just for a second and highlight this because we talk often at this table about the portrait of a graduate and the skills we want to see in our students upon graduation. And I wanted to highlight that if you were at the Southwest community meeting, you saw our portrait of a graduate in action. The students that spoke were so eloquent and they exhibited the characteristics that we want from our graduates. And we're very, very proud of them for using their voice. And Lily, nice job tonight. The community supported operational optimizations, such as taking a look at technology There's support for reviewing the one-to-one models at K through 2, and also delaying replacement cycles and exploring lower cost device options. The community supports cost control. For example, the credit card fees, eliminating or putting those back on the users and shifting to fully digital posting for board meetings. The community supports adjusting professional development. Interesting points they made about this. Adjusting summer professional development, but assuming that there would be long-term restoration. So if we get to the point where public schools are funded adequately, we would revisit that. And I think David Johns, that the professional development for summer school, if we were to eliminate that in entirety, it might put pressure on the school year.
Yeah, that's correct. We would really just have to be much more judicious about what we offer and what we hold back on. We just shared a really significant science adoption, for example, where we're going to need to invest in summer time support for teachers in that area. And so we'll have to make really important decisions. And we always do. We do tend to offer more opt-in programming for teachers in the summer, and that's where we would have to be much more limited.
Thank you. And there was support for administrative efficiencies. Selling this building came up often. Freezing administrator tuition reimbursement and taking a look at administrator 12-month contract, and if possible, offering a reduction to that contract to either 10-month or 11-month, depending upon responsibilities. The community also offered proactive strategies for revenue growth. They talked about collaboration with our post-secondary partners and exploring potential for more CTE pathways in collaboration with them. The community talked about pool revenue offsets, sponsorship and marketing. So branding, a lot of support for facility naming rights. And then kind of out of the box thinking, student run CT enterprises like coffee shops, catering models, cosmetology clinics, early childhood. Melissa, we can't run anything for profit, correct?
If students are acting as employees and creating things that would create an employment relationship, we would have to hire them on and pay them as employees.
Thank you for that. So now we want to walk through some of the steps that our administrative team has taken action on to address the budget deficit, and then we want to talk about board options. So David, you want to take the first one?
I will, and this is something that's already underway, and the amount of attention and deliberate focus that we would want to pay on some of those identified specialty programs in the district require us to really spend some time looking into them. So with an external partner, we begun an audit of the programs listed here. The budgetary impact of those programs is shown in the right. The program evaluators will not come back and say, keep this, don't keep this. They'll simply come back with a data set that is representative of the strategic plan measurable areas and share the outcomes within students who are part of the program compared to students who are not in part of the program. That would lead to some decision making about possibly scaling up, even reproducing or duplicating programs elsewhere, or realizing that the investment in that program is not getting the results that we would be seeking. Yeah, the partners currently have the data and are working with the data for all three programs. Initially, we were going to do one at a time, but the partner is pretty sophisticated in their work and are able to do all three at the same time. They have the data now, and we would anticipate by the beginning of May having an initial report back from them.
We're also, as David mentioned, looking into summer professional development adjustments that could garner a savings of up to $130,000. And then post-secondary institution collaboration, which I had mentioned earlier. We're also going to, for the third year in a row, reduce our district office department budgets by 10%. That should garner about $500,000 in savings. We will continue to look at positions as they become open to determine whether they should be backfilled or not. For facilities and operations, Kale, you want to talk about this one?
This item highlights our mostly our custodial services. Currently, we operate at a level that is, I would say, outside industry standard. So we provide a better product at a higher rate than what is expected, that we can attribute to just great employees. So any further reductions in that department would mean a reduction in service. An example of that would be cleaning a classroom every other night, reducing the scope of what we clean within the classroom. So we're not wiping off tabletops, things like that. So anything further as we would reduce FTE in our custodial department would certainly have an effect on the service we would be able to perform.
And we are continuing to take a look at vendor and software optimization. We will be implementing, discontinuing the credit card fees. Angie, did that happen already? Okay, so we've already implemented that, and minimally we're going to be saving $35,000 for all three of those areas at this point. So the ask of the board, and that's why the team is here, we're going to go through each of the items line by line on the table that you'll find towards the back of your document. And community members, this is on the memo. We're talking about the table towards the end. We're going to ask the board over the next 2 weeks, so between this work session and the regular board meeting on March 23rd, to review the items on the table and rate them in one of three categories. A would be acceptable, and that would mean that you're saying to district leadership to move forward with at least modeling what this could look like. This wouldn't be a vote. I want to make that very clear. What we're asking the board to do is to tell us, yes, let's take a look at what this means. And then we would bring it back, share with you the findings, and then there would be a board decision. So what we're going to ask again at March 23rd is tell us if you want to move forward with modeling what it could look like. That would be A, acceptable, or R, reluctantly acceptable. I don't want to have to do this, but if we haven't gotten to that dollar amount that we need to get to, then we should at least consider it. Or N, not acceptable. And that could be for a variety of reasons, but perhaps there's something on that list that you would say, I cannot vote or support that right now. So I want to talk about the budget reality, and then let's go through the items. Angie, jump in if you want. Right now we're facing a balanced budget for 26-27, but that does not include steps or a cost of living increase for our employees. So balanced budget for 26-27, but it does not include steps or cost of living. Steps amount to $2.4 million. Cost of living is at 2.63% right now. That would be about 5.5 million. Through the administrative actions, we've managed to garner a savings of 3 million for next year, approximately 3 million at this point. According to the current budget projections for next year, the board would need to cut an additional 4.9 million to provide steps and full CPI. So I share that number. So when we go through that list, and again, we're not asking you to make decisions tonight, but 4.9 would be the target. Okay, Angie?
So this slide is a slide that I had presented last month, just kind of going to walk through the timeline and what our reality is. So 25, 26, so that's the current year that we're operating in. We are facing, well, the board certified and approved a budget that was $3.5 million deficit this year. And then we were notified that we may potentially, most likely, will be getting less special education reimbursement than what we had anticipated per the state biennial budget. So we are now looking at going further into the red or further into fund balance by a couple $1,000,000 because of the short funding that we may not receive from the state. We won't know what we actually receive until the end of this fiscal year, probably in end of June is when we'll figure out what that number actually is. And so the 26, 27, like Vicki had mentioned, we are balanced, but that doesn't include the CPI or steps up to this point. But again, this is a working budget. It's a working number. So as we just showed in the previous slide, we are looking and continually looking internally as to what we're going to cut for next year. So we have garnered that 3 million. So we are working towards that $8 million deficit if we were to offer full CPI and full steps. So as staffing shakes out, as we figure out who's, where everybody's placed and how that all, right, that's a moving target right now because we aren't finalized and we're only on, March 9th. So we don't even know what this year is going to project out to be. So that is a moving number. Estimates, right? We're basing this on estimates. It's flexible. And then, of course, we have in 2027 that new state budget. So, hopefully we will see some more revenues coming into the district and throughout Wisconsin through the state budget. And then 27, 28, this is the deficit that we are potentially facing for that first year in 27, 28, because remember, this 27, 28 will be the first year that we no longer have that $16.5 million operational referendum. So next year is the last year for that $16.5 million. So we will be going out to the community in November and asking the community to support another operational referendum. And it's looking to be that first year around that in between 24 to $32 million ask for that first year. So just keeping in mind, I think another thing that's really important is that in November, when we go out to the community and if we pass that referendum, we will not see those additional dollars until the following year, because next year we still have $16.5 million in revenue for next year. It's the following year. So I think it's really important to note that we're going in November. So we've got a year to plan depending on the results of the operational.
Thanks, Angie. So at this point, we want to go line by line through your table and provide you with as much information as we can on the items. Board, please ask questions on the items to help inform your decision making. And then if you have any questions over the next 2 weeks so that we can best prepare you to evaluate each item, please reach out. So we'll begin with freezing steps. It's estimated $2.4 million for steps. Mike, can you explain what steps are, please?
A number of our employee groups, including our office personnel, our educators, our administrators, managers, are on wage schedules that allow for each year that you've been here, you would move forward to the next step. Steps tend to be separated by about 1% of their salary range approximately. And then, so freezing the steps would mean that you would not advance to another year of experience. You would stay in the spot. And that is different than applying a cost of living wage. That's like making a step higher, right? So that's like raising how high you're standing versus moving forward to the next step.
Any questions, board?
I don't have a question, but I'd like to add a comment to that just to add additional context. and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong in any of this, but I just want to make sure everybody understands too, there's basically 3 lanes of staff members, where you cap out getting a step increase. You can only get a step increase on an average of up to 15 years. I think it's 14, 15, 16 by the 3 different lanes. So we have a certain amount of staff members that don't even get access to a step increase anyways, correct?
It is correct that if you're in a stepped schedule, there's an end of the steps. It doesn't continuously happen. Thank you for clarifying that. Yes.
And I'm just saying that so that everybody knows when they weigh in their decision that there's, anyone who's worked for our district more than 15 years, essentially, they don't even have access to that. So that means CPI matters more for them, or it's the one out of the 2 things that they get access to. So something that's important to keep in mind.
I have a question. So I just want to clarify that I've heard this right in the past, that if we don't give step increases to people this year, we cannot double step increases in another year. They can't go 2 steps at once. It's always just 1 step.
So Act 10 really restricted what we're able to negotiate, and Act 10 said you can only negotiate cost of living, the CPI, and you can only go to the max of CPI unless you want to go to referendum. Step increases, even though we meet and confer and we're very collaborative here in the district, step increases under the law are at the discretion of the district and the board. So if a board wanted to give 4 step increases, they could vote to give 4 step increases. That is not what is subject to collective bargaining.
Go ahead, Alex.
And I remember the other thing that I was going to say that I forgot, which is, in effect, again, reminder, just in case anyone forgot, step increases are essentially the only, version of a raise that staff get. Because obviously, anytime cost of living, it just means you're breaking even if you get the full CPI. So for those who can get a step, it is the only form of any kind of raise that actually is in existence. So think about that from that perspective, but then also for the ones that don't get it, it means 2 things to 2 different people, also in comparison to CPI.
Andrew.
Thank you. This is similar, I guess, this will be my answer to the second one as well. I understand we need to look at possibilities and we need to be prepared for everything that could possibly happen, but we have a lot of uncertainty coming up, and we have a state budget with the large surplus. There is increased talk about possibly something coming together bipartisan to improve things a bit. There is a referendum opportunity that we'll have to carefully plan for. There's an election coming up, and there's the new state budget in 2027. At this point, I can't support drastic austerity budget, and to me, anything that causes our staff to go backwards. I'm not talking about, perhaps there's some unfilling of not filling open positions maybe, but as far as decreasing the effective income of our staff through healthcare going up or not doing a CPI when prices are going up, I can't accept that when we have a fund balance that is well over our policy minimum, and with so much uncertainty coming up. Even if we did have to, and this would not put us there, but even if we did once in a while have to short-term borrow for periods where the state's payments are late, this has existed when I was on the board. I know people don't like to talk about it, or they act like it's just terrible if we had to do that. I believe it was on the order of a line of credit that we would have to cover the days with which the state payment was late, and it was 2% interest for whatever days we used it, and it was on the order of a couple hundreds or a couple $1,000s. So before we are doing doom and gloom and having our staff roll back their standard of living, after we work carefully to increase it and be the first district to have a base of 50,000 for a new teacher and do all this, and that's me. I will, for my part as an individual elected official, I will evaluate these, but I am not participating in this from any mandatory number that we have to hit. I am not participating in this with an assumption that we have to hit 4.9 million. We need to know what happens in the referendum first. And I would agree that if a referendum fails, sure, then we have to look at probably class size and things we otherwise didn't want to touch. But I think we can do this right. And I don't want to see panicked decisions prior to a referendum, prior to whatever the state might do, and prior to the next state budget. So, thank you.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
Just one question. I was going to ask it before. So with the end of the fiscal year, kind of expecting to get that information on a potential, well, whatever the special education funding would be, we're expecting that in June, correct? And is it reasonable to have some sort of, or what is it maybe an expectation of if that's kind of a relevant timeline at that point, especially considering, possible referendum in November, is kind of that June, July, a possible time frame when we would possibly look to make some sort of decisions?
For the 26-27 school year, I think it depends on what it is. Some of the decisions would need to be made now so we can prepare. The program evaluations, for example, that's going to wait. It won't impact the 26-27 school year. But things like if we reduce the number of school days, we would need to make a decision about that as quick as possible. Yeah, it varies. We'll keep going. Okay, the annual benefits recommendations, we come to the board every time this year, so that will be an agenda item coming up yet tonight. Freeze admin tuition reimbursement. That's a $20,000 savings. This is handbook language. Mike, would you add anything to this?
It's been in place for a number of decades, I believe. I don't think the number has gone up in a number of decades. It's a set aside, and then administrators who are pursuing licensure or professional learning can submit a request following a process. And then when the money is used up in a year, then there are no more requests that can be considered. So.
Reduce the number of school days. Minimally, there would be a $41,000 a day savings. That's due to transportation, but there could be additional savings gained through staff work calendars. Kale, would you add anything to that, or anybody actually? Mike, you want to?
So to clarify, if we don't have a student contact day, that means we wouldn't be utilizing substitute staff, right? So that would save the substitute costs. And then a decision would need to be made regarding which staff who would be on a work calendar where they normally don't participate in work on a non-student day. Would they still come into work, or would they receive one less day of wages, or would we leverage that for our professional learning objectives as a district? So you can think of the range of employee groups that don't report on student days when students are, sorry, that don't report when students aren't at school.
I know this is what most students are probably thinking when we see this. Would this mean looking at going to a 4-day week like we were during COVID and then having a day off?
That's so funny you say that because the Southwest, the kids brought that up. No, it wouldn't. This is something, again, a reminder that what we would be asking from the board at the next meeting is, do you want us to explore this more? One of the options could be that we have currently built-in snow days. So we would look at the potential of making those virtual days if we ever needed those, instead of relying on the fact that we already have the appropriate number of minutes.
So would it be like reduced number of in-person school days, or like would asynchronous also be part of that? Because my concern with asynchronous is students that don't have access to all of that would just fall further behind in class.
Thank you for thinking of that. That would be something that we would explore as options and present that to the board. My initial vision of it was that it would just not be a student day.
Any other questions? Let's move forward.
Stop newspaper notice postings. That would be a $10,000 savings. It does meet the requirements because we currently post on the website, and Kinsey every week goes out and is it 3 locations that they're posted publicly? Any questions? Okay. Stop recording or live streaming board meetings. This would be a $19,150 savings. Lori, can you explain that part about YouTube?
Sure, there's a legal finding that the YouTube closed captioning does not meet the ADA accessibility requirements by federal law. So we currently pay CISA 7, who takes our recording of this meeting and then goes through and closed captions this out. One of the reasons why we had moved to this type of mic system, because when people had previously kind of spoken over each other, it was very hard then to make sure the closed captioning was accurate. And so, so that fee is strictly just what we pay CISA 7.
Consolidate Minoka Hill School with an existing building that has capacity. Estimates are between 190,000 and 250 for annual operational savings, plus the one-time sale price. Gail, do you want to add anything on that?
That would be the 190 to 250,000 is similar to the cost to operate the vacant buildings that had previously been discussed. This would ramp that up just a little bit for utilities and bring the level of service to operate that building while it's in, I would say, normal operation. So that's where those estimates come from. So it's the staffing and the cost to just maintain that building as it is without teaching and learning staff. That would just be operational staff.
Alex, do you have a question?
Yeah, just a quick guess, roughly. Do you know how much that building could be sold for?
Okay, go ahead.
Just from what I know of Minoka, would it work for those students to still have that privacy while being in a different building? Like, I think one of the main purposes of that Minoka building is so those students have the privacy if they go there and not many people know. How would their privacy be respected if in a different building with other students?
Excellent question. Thank you for asking that, because I was thinking the same thing.
Stop that back there. We would, I would assume, go to referendum for construction cost and create a secure environment. Go ahead, please.
950,000 was the estimate.
Keel, was that higher than Cherry Street? Okay. Consolidate John Dewey Academy of Learning with an existing building.
Go ahead, Lynn.
Is it feasible to move both of those schools and close both of those buildings, or is it an either or thing?
We haven't explored which buildings. This is an estimate of the sale price and the operational cost of the building. So at the direction of the board, we would pursue opportunities. Obviously, anything's possible, depending with construction and cost. So that's kind of the reason for putting it on here.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Thank you. John Dewey is not John Dewey anymore when you put it into another building. You can say we'll do project-based learning and put it in another building. You can say, yeah, but we'll put a separate entrance on it. You can say, yeah, but we'll put up a separator and we'll have have its own cafeteria or something. That's just, you need to understand that some students and families choose John Dewey because they love project-based learning and that's their sole reason, and then that would be okay for them. But there are people who choose that school because it is a self-centered environment with a small, closer knit community. We invested in that. We spent referendum money to remodel that building for that purpose. And you can't take a family-owned you can't take a family-owned restaurant that stands alone and put it in the food court of a mall and say, but the menu is exactly the same and the staff is exactly the same. The experience is still different. And there's nothing you can do about that that will not destroy that school community if you put it into another building. It'll also interfere with the school community of whatever building you're putting it into. So if there's a place to use some extra unused building space here and there, let's find a way to do it without destroying a program that a lot of families depend on. And also that keeps families, it certainly is keeping some families in the district instead of seeking something somewhere else, and that's retained revenue. So,
Lynn?
I love John Dewey Academy, but I cannot let this go without stating that it is absolutely possible to have two completely different schools in the same building. It is possible to do that. To say it can't be done is to just give up and not even investigate it. John Dewey Academy can be exactly as it is in a different building. The fact that it's in that building is not what makes it what it is. Yes, if you try to integrate students and you pretend that they're two different schools, but they aren't, that's different. But you can do two different things in the same building if you do it right. So I wish that we would stop saying it can't be done. That's just my position. I don't mean to be argumentative, but I want to put that on the table. Yes, it can be done.
Any other? Okay, I think we can continue.
Edison School pool closure. We will be bringing a proposal to the board this evening. Eliminate non-special education hub busing. That could garner $150,000 in savings. Currently, we offer that to Da Vinci families. I don't know if we have utilization number.
Um, 109 students with 4 routes. That's to and from school, so 8 total routes, but 4 round trip routes for 109 students.
No, I think that was my question. That's the totality of the hub busing? Okay.
And it's just for Da Vinci, because I know we don't do that for JDOL, we don't do that for NEW, we don't do that for our special programs, do we?
Correct.
Lynn?
What is hub busing?
There's designated pickup locations that students can go to, and then we will bus them from those designated locations to their school.
Because they don't live near the school, they're coming from all around the district. Okay.
Parents pay a portion for that?
That is not included, so thank you. That should be added in there. The fee is $200, so you can do the math, about 109 students at $200 each. That would be reduced off of that total cost savings. Annual.
I think an option on that one too, Melissa, am I right, that we could, beyond eliminating, we could continue to offer it, but increase the fee?
We could increase the fee up to the actual cost of what that hub busing is costing, but not make a profit off of it.
What if a student cannot afford it?
Sorry, that's the rub. That's. Mhm. Convert one contract day to evening supervision. This could garner $116,000 in savings. It would be the utilization of one of the 191 contract days to eliminate paid event supervision logistics. Mike?
So districts that have done this, essentially, they have their staff at the beginning of the year or different points in the year, commit to signing up for a given number of events. Hey, I'll work 3 events and I pick these 3. And then once you've completed them, then you still retain that 191st day. Staff that chose not to do that, they would have the 190. That's typically how that plays out. Small districts can manage it pretty easily. We would have the logistical pieces to try to figure out. Obviously, if you are in a high school, they have a large number of evening weekend options to sign up for. And if you're an elementary school or a smaller school, there may be less. And so we would need to work very carefully to make sure everybody has the proper opportunities, the sign up notice, et cetera. And so the management would be basically affiliated with something like that. So I think there's an additional question over here too.
So would this be like school dances and like the elementary like school events and stuff? Is that what we're talking about?
Sure. So my wife is a employee at another school district, and this year in her district, she decided to sign up. So I think she supervised a middle school dance. I think she watched one of the flags at the cross country meet, and I think the third thing is still to come. But yeah, those types of events, as opposed to normally a school district would hire somebody and pay them an hourly rate for working those extra things. No, this isn't my suggestion per se. It just coincidentally, this is something that is happening that I can speak to in that example. So.
Yeah, just to be clear, that I'm not just saying here opposing everything that saves money, because that's not what I'm all about either. This seems to be a pretty good voluntary kind of thing where people could. I think everyone who wants to work the events should be able to work the events and keep their whole pay. If someone feels like it's not worth it to them, so they can just have one less day of pay and it's okay. But if it's okay with them, yeah, this seems to be a pretty painless one that, especially if it's hard to sometimes get people. I would assume that people would be able to select events across schools and things. So if you're elementary, you wouldn't just automatically be out of opportunities. You could pick up a high school event.
Alex?
At the same time, I just have a hard time envisioning this with the scale of the district that we have. I mean, it's hard enough just for everybody to get on the same page, just to do assignable time within one given middle school with 90 staff members, you know, and trying to do something like this, you know, as someone who's been an activities director and all these other things and a coach, you name it. I just, I, I like the idea. I feel like for us, it's possibly impractical with a lot of the natural challenges that would come into place. Um, and it almost seems like it would create more of an impossible headache potentially. Just the practicality of doing it at our scale is something that I think to consider.
Go ahead.
As a student, I know that it's a lot more encouraging to perform when you see adults who care about you there. So I think any excuse to like get staff to come watch and support their students is always worth it.
Go ahead, Sam.
This, and again, the logistics piece, I hear getting it up and running. This was the model of the district that I worked in. We were doing this 15 years ago. So it was absolutely, like you said, Lola, like, you know, you had to pick from, are you supervising concerts, athletic events? Does that mean, are you supervising the kids in the room before they go out to perform? Are you supervising in the room that they're performing in? So there were, I mean, it was a lot of creative ways to do that. Just from a logistics perspective, it was day one of coming back. We had to sign up for whatever we wanted to calendar it and commit to it. Not to say that changes didn't happen. It was run really at the building level though at that point. So, but again, it was just an expectation of our contract at the time. So again, it's a huge logistics lift on the front end, but potentially, as the student said, you know, I think it's great. Not that we're not visible as teachers at student events, but I think it nudges us to be a bit more present at some of those things.
Okay, I don't think there's any other questions. Go ahead.
The last three are revenue generation as well. Increase student fees, increase facility rental fees, and sell naming rights.
Any questions or comments regarding that? Go ahead.
I know that TBD is because we would have to negotiate what that increase would be. But can someone tell me what our right now base, when we talk about the revenue that's generated by school fees, what that is?
School fees, about 500,000.
So if we said 10% increase, we're not, that's okay. Thank you.
Go ahead, Lynn.
For the last one, selling naming rights, is this something that has just never been considered, or is there a policy against it, or has it happened in the past?
We have sold naming rights. We do have a policy. I think it's 940 if you're going to quiz me, but it might be something else. So the board has to approve the selling of the naming rights based on what we're selling, and there would be a contract that we enter into. We've done it, the Jean Marsh Auditorium in Green Bay Southwest, the Rush Auditorium, I think at Preble, and then there might be one or two other ones that I'm forgetting off the top of my head.
So this wouldn't be something new. The idea is just be more aggressive about it?
Yes, and in small capacities, other things have been, I think, Preble at the scoreboard, the new football scoreboard, and maybe the scoreboard in the gym have smaller donors that are on those scoreboards. So there's ways you can do it without selling a stadium or a auditorium.
Chanel, did you have a question? Because I thought I saw your hand raised earlier.
No, I didn't.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
This was brought up. I just want to speak to a little bit because it was brought up in the community meetings quite a bit in regards to increasing facility rental fees. It's not a huge revenue generator for us now. Part of that is the difficulty with a lot of the nonprofits and clientele that are trying to leverage our spaces. They simply can't afford that. And in fact, what we provide them is a pretty fair and reasonable rate. We have added in recent years custodial costs, theater technicians, and things like that. Um, we have not received a lot of additional interest in those because of some of those costs. So it's just the clientele that is renting our facilities does not have a great capacity to increase those costs. I would fear that our limited revenue would be potentially impacted negatively if we significantly increase our facility use fees.
The other thing is, we are only allowed to charge for facility use what it actually costs us for someone to use that facility. So again, similar to the hub busing, we can't charge above and beyond that actual cost.
And then I don't know if you're getting to this point or not, but with this list, this is obviously a list, but there are other things that I have thought of and other community members had reached out. And I just want to know, if you weren't going to get to this already, how and where you would also want to add and extend to this list, if any of us have additional things that we want to, that we think are valuable to consider as well.
So I think that if you have ideas, just like we've reached out to community and the administration has, provided theirs, please forward them to me and we'll make sure that they're agended and part of the discussion. So as we looked at this, now that we've gone through all the table, there are obviously 7 different perspectives on, these potential cuts. But what I would recommend at this point is I will present a table that is basically this table out of this memo and deliver it to all of the board members so that you can make your own rankings. And then we'll put it in and when we go to the next board meeting in advance, we'll submit that back out to everyone to see where areas of consensus are and some of those non-starters that we can just make sure that we have a good head start into the discussion during the next board meeting so that we can focus on things that would be meaningful and have an opportunity to get past the board, right? I think that the goal is to, well, look at these and create an opportunity to vote up or down on each particular line item and not as a kind of a set, if I remember correctly. So.
And again, this is about giving us direction on what we should investigate further. You're not making a vote on, yep, let's go ahead and do that. Okay. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Does anybody have any other, before they stand up? Okay, great. Thank you. We'll move on to our next agenda item under operations, which is 5E, recommendation to convert Edison Middle School pool to auxiliary gymnasium.
All right, thank you. So I'd like to first acknowledge the speakers tonight that came out that represents not only our Green Bay United swim team, but also our Green Bay Swim Club and their conversations during the community meetings as well. So I thank them for their inputs, and I'm sure as many board members have heard from them, appreciates them coming out to discuss the pools in the district. The memo in front of you tonight exclusively talks about Edison Middle School, and I think that's a reflection of what we've heard from the feedback from the community. This memo tries to analyze our current reality of the Edison pool, utilizing utilization data, instructional need, financial considerations, and then, as I said, the operational reality of what these currently are. So the recommendation is to convert the Edison swimming pool into a gymnasium in its existing footprint. In this memo, I have a summary of findings, and I'll just briefly run through these at any time if you have questions. There's a lot of data in here. Please feel free to ask any questions as I go through these. But in these summary of findings, the first I have is the educational limitations of the current Edison Middle School. So this talks about the use of this facility during the school day. So as you note here, participation levels continue to decline during our physical education units. This limited instructional time only runs from about November to March. Student groups enter the pool about 3 times during each swimming unit. Staffing constraints with this as well. Our PE teachers have to be certified for aquatic supervision, but no instruction can take place when they are in the pool and students are in the pool. That's due to us having students in the pool and out of the pool. So their instruction of those in the pool cannot take place to the level that they would desire. With that too, some rough numbers. These are a little more difficult to tackle, but participation at the 6th grade level is about 60 to 70% of the students that participate in Phi-Ed actually go in the water. 7th grade, that number drops to about half of the students, if not less. And then 8th grade, it was cited about 3 or 4 students, so that usage, about 15% of students are actually going in the water for those units. With this too, if you're familiar with Edison, they only have one gymnasium outside of the pool. That causes for some difficulty with over 1,000 students in that building, scheduling Phi-Ed. They do have a weight room that is leveraged, but between that, the pool, and the gymnasium, it's very difficult to schedule in that building with that many students. Any questions on the educational limitations? All right.
So why is it so low? It's an optional Phi-Ed activity? You can pick that or something else?
It's a variety of factors. Ultimately, the kids really don't like swimming. You have to deal with bringing clothes, swimming, getting wet, changing, all that kind of stuff. It's the only school other than Southwest that has to do it. There's just a lot of different things, and ultimately, when you are there, you cannot legally, safely, you cannot be an instructor as a teacher once there's kids in the water. Once the kid's in the water, because there is no lifeguard on duty, you are now that lifeguard. So you are not. So what it does is it really reduces the efficacy and the enjoyability of any unit or lesson in there. You're really just relegated to primarily open swim, and you're a glorified lifeguard. You just can't do anything because you don't have a lifeguard. You are the lifeguard. So there's a variety of reasons why kids don't want to swim. They don't like to swim. It's challenging to deal with it. Think about girls going through their menstrual cycle. There's a lot of different things that go on, and then you can't even instructionally make it an enjoyable environment because of the safety requirements. Just to give a kind of a summary.
Okay, and then I'll jump to co-curricular and scheduling needs. So this focuses on our co-curriculars in the building outside of swimming, and I'll get to the swimming here next. But Edison has a strong co-curricular participation. They have basketball teams, volleyball, and wrestling. I have the number of teams listed and participants in the memo for you to look at. There's some large numbers there. when this becomes challenging with one gymnasium, they have to schedule, when these seasons run concurrently, they have to schedule these practices out throughout the night. At the middle school level, that often requires some help with transportation. That can cut down on participation. It can be difficult to get students once they leave the building to come back. So scheduling becomes a hurdle in co-curriculars. Also, another note is when we host home games at Edison, that limits that to only 2 home games a night at that location. That eliminates practice at that building. Unless that team has an away game, that team cannot play games that night either. We also have with wrestling joint. It's a joint team with Edison and Red Smith. That team does not currently practice at Edison due to gym space, running with these other co-curriculars. So they actually practice at 7 p.m. at Preble, which is also a highly scheduled building as well. So really, this kind of just discussed the bottlenecks. As you can see, the number of participants and the number of teams with the co-curriculars. So then, as I said, the next one here is pool utilization by our community partners. Currently, our Green Bay United team, I don't have this listed in here other than some notes. Our Green Bay United team does not leverage the Edison pool. They did have to this past year due to the shutdown of the Southwest pool for a mechanical issue. So this year they did swim at Edison during that shutdown. But over this 3-year historical period, they had not leveraged Edison pool outside of that time. As you can see here, the utilization numbers for our community partners are fairly low. So how I came up with 2,673 available hours for that pool, I felt was conservative. That is based on non-federal holidays and broken down over non-school days versus school days, and changing those hours. So a non-school day, that pool would be available from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., trying to stay in reasonable hours. On a school day, that would be after the school day with a bubble there from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. So we tried to be reasonable in the available hours to this. And that's where you see the utilization hours. So you see actual used hours and then the percentage of that total hours here broken down. So in 2023, for example, the pool was used for 234.5 hours, approximately 8.77% of the actual available time of that pool outside of the school day, if that makes sense. I can come back to the next one. So I break this down a little bit further for one of our community partners who spoke today as well with our Green Bay Swim Club. They are the heaviest users of this pool. And I'll explain that here in a second once I get to their identification down here. So as you can see, our pool utilization, even with Green Bay Swim Club included, really hasn't, it hovers less than 10%. That 12.37% this year was that jump due to our Green Bay United team using that during the pool shutdown. So our historical users for Edison, as I mentioned, Green Bay Swim Club, that is a private swim club. Their participation does have Green Bay Area Public School District members in that. It is open to outside residents as well. They currently rent the Edison pool at a rate of $40 an hour. Their utilization here below in the last 3 years is listed, total utilization. So then I'll reference back what that additional utilization was of the pool. So outside of Green Bay Swim Club, in 2003, the total hours used were 38.5 hours. In 2004, 8.5 hours. And then that 67.25 hours in 2025 includes the Green Bay United swim team. So that's why it jumps a little bit. But as you can see, all that utilization outside of that Green Bay Swim Club is about 2% or less. historical members, Green Bay Parks and Rec had leveraged the Edison pool in the past. They have not used pool for swim lessons since 2001, and they have not done lifeguard training there since 2003.
2021 and 23.
Oh,
right?
sorry, did I mess that
Yeah.
up? Sorry. There's a lot of numbers in front of me.
Yeah.
I have reached out. We've been in constant contact with them regarding a number of our facilities, not just pools, but did follow up. Less than a year ago, we started looking at what post-referendum facility usage can look like because we do have a partnership with the city. We use their facilities, they use ours. They stopped using it for a number of reasons. Staffing and revenue was one of them. They weren't generating a lot of revenue was part of the reason. Lack of lifeguards was another reason, among a few other reasons as well. In their request, they were looking at a potential starting up the programs again, but looking at one lifeguard training class for a year, only a couple of classes, and then a swim lesson course in the future. They couldn't put a date on that. They would like to entertain potentially doing that again in the future. But as of right now, no plans to start up swim lessons at another pool at this point. So very, I guess, limited usage even currently with Green Bay Parks and Rec. And then Green Bay United, I did include Green Bay United here as a user, although they haven't been significantly using the pool at least over the past 3 years. I've included the participation for both those clubs. This is more to show, I think, potential capacity at Southwest for this. So this isn't meant to include Southwest pool in this in any way. This is just to kind of reflect a little bit of that usage at Southwest High School. So I'll kind of briefly go over this. One note, and in some discussion with Green Bay Swim Club, and then our facilities team is pre-COVID, I believe Green Bay Swim Club primarily used the Southwest pool and did not use the Edison pool. We did talk about their current participation, and I want to say this correctly. There was, in discussion with the Green Bay Swim Club, the possibility of consolidating to Southwest, I would say, is a possibility. And I want to be fair to that because that could potentially cap them. It currently, from my understanding, does not. That could cap their future participation. So I want to be very sensitive to that. But also, I know it will not come without difficulties of scheduling. So there will be conflicts, but that had been done in the past, and I would hope that we could work on a solution that could get them the pool time they need at Southwest High School. So I hope for the members of that club listening, I'm hoping I'm portraying that right. And if I am not, feel free to reach out to me or the board and we can discuss that further. Just want to make sure I have everything in that piece. So in a nutshell, our community partners at Edison really are the Green Bay Swim Club. Outside of that is very negligible. So for the financial impact, as you can see here, we run at a loss, which I don't think surprises anyone. As you see these annual operating costs, about $65,000 a year, that is really for if you think about it like this, the water in the pool. So the footprint of that building, so if that was to be converted to a gymnasium, the footprint of that building would still exist. We would still have to heat that space. So these numbers I wanted to be conservative on. So this really looks at how much it costs to filter the water, how much it costs to heat the water, to move that water, to pay for the water. It's all city water. So that's that 65,000, what you see there. That number does increase. Utilities increase at about 5% year over year. So that number is ever increasing. I did include the revenues from the Green Bay Swim Club. That is specific to Edison. So that does offset that. And that's where we come to about that operating loss of about $52,000 to $55,000 at just the operating costs. The more significant cost here, and we're coming down this road with Southwest too, is our cost avoidance. So we have some major mechanical repairs, one of which had to happen at Southwest already with the air handler. There's mechanical equipment, so traditional mechanical equipment, boilers to heat the water, things like that. And then actual specific pool equipment, filtration systems, turbines, things like that. That right here is a pretty high level estimate. We did have a vendor come in and look at that. We're looking for some more pool equipment vendors to help us with this. But I would say total avoided capital cost is about $635,000. And I would say that's a conservative number at this time as well. That number increases every year too. If we maintain without replacing, that number increases as well. And that just as I noted at the beginning of this section, the gymnasium maintenance cost, that is going to be, because I kind of isolated that water cost, if you will, keeping that shell, that building, if we do convert to a gymnasium, I wouldn't say it's cost neutral, but very minimal cost to the district, because we would have to maintain that footprint of the building anyways, without tearing it down. So if we tore it down, that would be a different discussion. If we repurpose it, some of that cost would offset itself, if that makes sense. And then educational and operational value. I'm not going to go through every piece of this, but this section goes through, this was helped populated by the building of how they could use a gym space in lieu of a pool throughout the school day and in co-curriculars or after school. So this runs through academic and instructional, athletics expansion, community programming, intramurals, unified sports, things like that. So you can see that. That's just a list of things the school put together that we could function in that space to get a higher utilization out of that footprint. Obviously, a conversion of a pool does have a cost. So I did put a funding proposal together on this if the board wants to proceed with this project. My recommendation to fund this, we have an estimate of about $1.5 million to convert this one-time cost. I would recommend that coming out of our 24 referendum. The reason we're able to pay that out of the 24 referendum, as you've noted in my updates, we have now successfully bid out approximately 65%, actually today a little more with NWTC, of our projects within the first year. That is very significant, and we carried a contingency for inflationary costs. Due to our aggressive bidding, we've been able to reduce our risk in the inflationary cost area. And that's where I think we can safely take from that contingency fund to fund this long-term net savings for the district with this project. I also put a timeline on this with the expectation potentially of, again, this is all hypothetical at this point, of a completion date of approximately fall of 2028. And then finally, obviously, it is the recommendation of the administration that we proceed with the conversion of the Edison School pool to an auxiliary gymnasium for Edison Middle School. And the key points, as I just talked about, the significant underutilization of the pool, the high operational costs, and then the pending capital costs, the clear instructional and co-curricular benefits of a higher utilized gym space, and then a feasible transition plan for user groups such as Green Bay Swim Club. Also partnering with our Green Bay United and the Green Bay Swim Club to find alternatives. I've already reached out to UWGB. I have not got a response yet to see if their pool would be available in the event that we did have an issue with our pool. And just continuing to reach out to community partners to find pool time to support our Green Bay United team. And then it's an improved student experience across athletics, across multiple athletics, and physical education. So with that, I'll just take any questions.
Okay, so the plan would be to encourage or to see to the club that uses the Edison pool to see if we could schedule and manage that club using the pool at Southwest.
That's correct.
That's your going in position. So you said that there were potential conflicts there. I'm trying to reconcile 8 to 12% pool utilization during those available hours and the conflicts. Is it just because that percentage is kind of misleading, because really the time
Correct.
is really just the 2 or 3 hours right after school, and in there it's 50% of the time it's utilized, and you're gonna have to.
Yeah, I wanted to be considerate of overlapping seasons. Obviously prioritize use for Green Bay United, being that they're our program. Again, the Green Bay Swim Club, although we have, it does directly impact our swimmers because a lot of them come from that program. That is a club team. So we do have to prioritize our United team. So I wanted to be fair to that as we explore that. I think having done that, not me personally, but the programs having done that in the past, leads me to believe that it can be done again, while just being sensitive to it may not be as ideal as having 2 pools.
And for those that, if it wasn't already clear, my last number of years teaching the district was there. And one thing I want to make sure to point out is taught in a lot of different schools in a lot of different districts. And it was very eye-opening teaching physical education there, because I had not been in a school in any kind of school district, school size, school type, that had such a lack of physical education space compared to the amount of students that they have. Traditionally, it might be slightly different now because of a small change in enrollment, but basically, since Edison was created, it's been the first or second largest 6 through 8 middle school in the state. And many other gyms at other schools, bigger, or other schools bigger and smaller, they have a lot more physical education space and extracurricular. So what happens at Edison every single day is unlike most other schools, where you have 2 main things that happen. One, you have way too many kids in a gym, sometimes up to 3 classrooms in one gym in certain circumstances. And you also have a lot of time where kids are sitting out just due to simple space constraints and safety. And so it's really kind of an equity issue with that school compared to the rest of the district. And the same thing bleeds into extracurriculars. We're the only middle school where they're forced to have staggered practice times late into the night and come back to school for middle school age kids just due to space. And so that's just a little bit to highlight what happens every single day. And that really prohibits engagement. It prohibits development. It prohibits investment in all of our extracurriculars and all of our physical education development and programs for all of the kids that go through there.
Any other questions? Okay. Thanks, Kale. Let's go on to 5F, benefit recommendations. I think that's probably Mike. It's Mike and Angie coming to the table.
Jessica Cortez.
And Jessica, thank you.
Look,
I also want to acknowledge that you've been here 3 hours. If you needed a 5-minute break or something, we're happy to wait 5 minutes if anybody needed to get a drink or use the facilities or anything.
Okay.
I just want to acknowledge that I will be abstaining from this part of the conversation due to a relative that works in the district.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Good evening. Again, my name is Mike Freeze. I work in Human Resources. I'm joined tonight by our Chief Financial Officer, Angie Robley, and our Benefits Manager, Jessica Cortez. We are here to bring the annual benefits recommendation for plan renewal to the Board of Education for initial discussion, recognizing that at the end of the month, we would be asking for the governance requests associated with the annual recommendations. Earlier in the evening, Superintendent Byer shared with you a variety of aspects related to district budgeting scenarios and areas to focus on, to consider and rank. We intentionally had left the benefits pieces off of that to incorporate into this conversation. You will have access to, if you don't already, a benefits recommendation memo for the year. And then we have a corresponding attachment that we provide for you to review in regards to the specifics. We anticipate later this month that we would ask for your vote around the standard active and retiree rates for medical, dental, and vision. As well as tonight, we have some plan design recommendations. We've lumped that together in a governance recommendation. We also have some new offerings that we'd like to bring to your awareness that have been suggested for consideration to adopt. And then we also are going to be discussing the income protection plan program and a proposal to replace that with a voluntary short-term disability proposal. So overall, the proposals we bring to you tonight that we're happy to outline and go through item by item, as well as respond to questions or discussion around, we believe balance the needs of our employees in the space of medical, dental, vision, and other insurance products, along with recognizing the financial considerations that really are straining us as an employer in the area of insurance. Rising healthcare costs have not subsided. Long-term sustainability of the programs that we've offered are becoming more delicate to try to navigate. And so we do recognize on the front end that there are some significant suggestions that we've made this time around that we would like your consideration for. So the goal, however, has been to keep our core medical plan design stable to provide high quality access to the great providers in northeastern Wisconsin and across the country, frankly. And we also want to make a plan, the high deductible plan, design a little bit differently, because we believe that that's an area that many of our employees are interested in pursuing, but it's not quite attractive enough to them to make a switch from the copay plan. So we'll be talking about that tonight. Are there any questions about the purpose and intent of what we're here to discuss? All right, I'll have Kinsey, if you don't mind sharing the kind of the appendix side of things. This includes a list of enumerated items, and I don't know how easy it is to make that font larger. There we go. So we'll go through these items, and then they are numbered on the left-hand side for your potential questions or any discussion that you may have. Initially, the administration of the medical plan, our recommendation is that we would continue to utilize UMR. It provides the largest access to a network of providers that, therefore, there's no change recommended in that space. We recognize continuing our individual contracts that we've created with Amplify by Bell and Health, as well as Prevea, for access to the no cost or low cost options for many very valuable services that our employees have benefited from. So no recommended changes to those areas either. Preventative care, we recommend no changes to that. We recommend continuing 100% covered preventative care. With regards to the overall copay plan design, the $1,500 deductible copay plan, We are not recommending any changes to the deductible. We are not recommending any changes to the overall structure of the copay. That plan does remain well below benchmark districts and across the state, including across the overall state plan. So we don't recommend any plan design changes. We've made changes to that plan in recent years, and we don't have recommendations around that. The one change that we are recommending is the structure and funding related to the HRA, the health reimbursement arrangement for the copay plan. I don't know if I should call it a fiscal cliff per se, but the challenge of continued funding and the sustainability of that has been determined to be quite problematic. We have a benefits advisory committee, and we have spoken with the leadership of the Green Bay Education Association, our benefits advisory committee. We talked earlier with them this year about possibly recommending a discontinuation of that plan due to the financial costs. Based on their feedback and some dialogue, we went, we, as they say, sharpened our pencils and went back and tried to figure out a way to keep it sustainable. And so our proposal on the HRA is that it would be reduced to $750 for the single plan and $1,500 for the family plan. And then starting with the 26-27 plan year, the new funds that were contributed annually would not roll over. This is an effort to have a cost containment strategy while still retaining that HRA option in the copay plan. So what are the overall consequences of that recommendation? The single plan members would have $250 less to draw from, and family plan would have $500 less to draw from. So that's the copay plan at a glance. The high deductible plan, item number 6, we're looking to enhance that by lowering some of the in-network max out-of-pocket pieces. We're recommending a contribution by the district of an HSA, which we have not offered before. We're recommending offering a $500 single, $1,000 family annual contribution to an HSA. That would be a new offering sponsored by the district. Employees would have the opportunity to further supplement their HSA up to the limits offered by the law annually. That is viewed and requested by many of our members, and we believe that it is a strong option because it is known as kind of triple tax advantaged. It's an investment vehicle. It's portable after you leave the district, and it is viewed as something that we should bring on board. To properly structure the high deductible plan along with that, we're actually proposing reducing the deductible from $6,350 to $5,500 for singles and from $12,700 to $11,000 for family. We also would then leave that as the same number for the max out of pocket, both for the in-network pieces. It should be pointed out that more than the vast majority of our services provided are done in-network. I think the latest numbers were 98.9% last year were done through in-network, and this year I believe it's 0. I don't think we've had a service provided by somebody outside of network. So really that's encouraging people to continue in the network. And we believe that those two combinations would be beneficial for the high deductible plan that may be attractive to more people than have been in it before. The overall funding formula for our medical plan this year, based on the forecast, would suggest a overall premium increase to the copay plan of 2.23%, an increase to the high deductible plan of 6.99%. And we're also recommending with number 9 that we move from the 88-12 split of participation in the premiums to an 85-15. So the employee contribution would go from 12% with an annual wellness exam to a 15%. And we have provided then subsequent tables for you to see what those rates would look like for the employee, employee spouse, employee children, and family plans. I recognize that this is a lot of information after a long meeting so far, and it's your first time really seeing it in depth. And so the benefit would be that you'd have the opportunity to ask us questions tonight, but also as takeaways, we'd be more than happy to research and digest and come back with responses to questions that you have. We've tried to provide information such as a side-by-side view. If somebody chooses to stay in the copay plan, what would their anticipated changes be in a monthly premium cost? If they switched to one of the other plans, right? If they went from copay to high deductible or high deductible to copay, you can see that if you went from copay to high deductible, even though that has a higher premium increase, that actually would result in a decrease in their monthly premium. No one in our district receives a monthly paycheck. They receive it twice a month. And so different employee groups, maybe they have 20, 19, 24, 22. And so we would provide information about how to calculate out the exact impact. For example, an educator on a single plan staying in the copay model, it's about $16, just under $17 per check that would be different relative to that premium. I'll finish up with the other examples and then we'll let you circle back through and ask us questions. The retiree rates, we are recommending at 2.23 increase for the retiree medical plans as well. We are recommending enforcing dependent coverage according to the law, which would be continuing to extend medical and dental coverage to eligible dependents through the age of 26. However, verified disabled dependents over the age of 26 would be transitioned off of our insurance plan. Impacted families would be eligible for alternative coverage, and so member education would need to be provided to support folks with disabled dependents over the age of 26. We are recommending implementing a coordination of benefits approach to make sure that primary insurance is applied first prior to GBAPS insurance when folks have us as secondary. This would ensure that we are not being charged overpayments as a district than we would be required to do. We are also recommending the implementation of a $400 a month spousal surcharge when the spouse has access to other employer coverage at that less than $500 a month employee-only premium. We have approximately 165, I believe, who are currently using us as secondary spousal coverage. And so if they wish to remain on the plan, they would have that spousal surcharge employed. That's anticipated to garner approximately $375,000 in savings for the district. The dental rate plans, we are recommending a rate hold for our active employees. The plan is performing well. It's meeting expectations. There are no plan design changes. The retirees are the ones that are utilizing the plan more extensively, and they would be requested to absorb a 15.8% premium increase. So that would be a $7.75 increase per month, single, $22.85 month for family on the retiree plan. The vision plan is on a rate hold through 2028, so we would recommend sticking with the same rate, right? Guaranteed pricing in the current contract. Number 17 is a more substantial change, similar to what was employed back in, I think, 2019, 2020. We are recommending to manage risk for the plan and cost for the plan that retirees who are eligible for dental and vision at age 65 are moved over to Medicare and off the plans, including vision and dental as of age 65. With regards to life and disability insurance, there are no recommended changes to that. And then 19, 20, and 21 reflect some newer things related to voluntary insurance. We are recommending the opportunity for employees who wish to enroll in voluntary accident, voluntary critical illness, and voluntary hospital indemnity plans. Those would be employee paid, but we would be able to navigate that through a payroll deductions process, right? And essentially, if somebody based on their own risk assessment and analysis and decides that they would like to have those plans, if they would incur a qualifying accident, a critical illness, or a hospital stay, those plans would pay them directly as individuals to help address any of their costs that were associated, right? Most of those plans also have a wellness incentive as part of you can kind of have your premium to a great extent covered through showing qualifying wellness plans that are wellness activities that you've done, such as an annual physical. And so we believe that would be a very popular plan for some members. In introducing that, if approved, we would also have the opportunity to offer employees during a one-time, without evidence of insurability, the opportunity to add an increase in voluntary life insurance for self, spouse, and dependents. And then again, we are coming to you asking for consideration of the removal of the income protection plan and replacement with the voluntary short-term disability plan. you approved a plan percentage change as of July 1 this year. Through first semester, it garnered $46,000 less than we had the year before, but we're still on track for over $700,000 of IPP payments this year. The voluntary short-term plan would provide non-taxable payments for up to 90 days with up to a $1,500 weekly cap, and it would be payable year-round. So we've got some examples on the final pages of what that would look like for premium rates for various employee groups. They're done as examples because not everybody is exactly the same, but it gives some people an idea of what a monthly premium would look like. And then if they use that plan, how they would be paid on a weekly basis. So all told, we know there's a lot of information here. We've tried to number it, tried to be specific and concise. There's an accompanying memo, and I'm happy to pause and open the floor for any questions or discussion that you may be interested in.
Go ahead, Andrew.
So I have one thing that I'll need to know for next week, and it's kind of all encompassing, but it's ultimately one thing. For me to decide, I need to know what the impact of the proposed changes are out of the pockets of a single and out of a family. And last time I was given something that was, I don't think it was your fault. I think it was our third party provider's fault that had things broken up into weird buckets that made it impossible to actually determine actuarially what is happening. So for me to be able to decide, I need to know, including IPP, because that is and I think it has to be with the assumption that people would keep IPP because it's dangerous to not keep it. So that means they're paying for it. That's what I need to know, is how much is it going to impact a single and how much is it going to impact a family. And I'll decide based on that impact that I see there. So thank you.
Other questions? Go ahead, James.
Line number 2 is the medical network. Can you just briefly describe the scope of services that are provided by those that network with Bellin Health, or Amplify, sorry, because that's at no charge or $10 copay. So, what's the nature for the scope of the services?
Jessica, would you mind commenting on that?
Absolutely. So Bellin Health, Prevea, both have the partnered health. So you get free wellness, free preventative care. Like the children will get their free preventative care as well. Urgent care is free. Physical and occupational therapy at Bellin is $10. Prevea does not have occupational therapy, but they do have physical therapy for $10 as well, and nutritional counseling as well. And I think that might be it.
There's a list of specific labs that each provider makes available. So Bellin has a nice list of labs, and then Prevea has a different list. And so folks that are really kind of checking what their doctor's asking for, they may go onto our site and look at the list of current labs that are free or no cost and say, hey, I have an order for this. I'd like to get this filled, as an example.
Right, because under the ACA and preventative care, they've kind of carved out a lot of the lab work as outside of preventative care. And so you always get charged for phlebotomy and the CBC or whatever that conversation with your primary care kind of leads to. So this is a suite of labs as well that could be as low as that $10 copay in that range as well. Because I hear where Andrew is coming from. Actuarial value is valuable when it comes to making a decision, but these are the kind of things that it's really hard to ascertain the value because so much of the contact lives there, especially with families with young children that are going through that, and I'll tend to visit the emergent care at night kind of thing. So I appreciate that. So in looking at this also, I think it's fair to recognize that across industry, and including the state plan, this year premium increases are significant, right? You see the news about ACA, depending on your position, and if you're a family or whatever, some of those plans the increase is up to 30%, right? And that's a complete outlier. The state plan this year has a proposed increase of 8% and 11%. So I recognize, again, when we look at actuarial value and you understand the hit out of pocket, we have to compare that to, if we were to move just to the state plan, we'd be looking at 8% and 11% increase in premium costs out there. So seeing 2.66 and 6.9 is probably industry leading, right? I don't know anyone else that's benefiting from that low of a premium increase out there. So you do have to take into consideration the hit to the employee, and we're sensitive to that. But when we compare it to, we can't compare it to what it was last year, right? We also have to compare it to what it could be this year, and how well that's health plan right now, being self-insured, is performing for us. So 2 cents.
Point of clarification relative to both of those examples. Mr. Becker, would it be helpful for, because I mean, I've been trying to think through like an example of a single plan and they have X number of incidents throughout the year. So it would, no, sorry.
Okay, we have a third-party health plan that has an actuary, and they can tell us they should be able to tell us that average. And if their actuary doesn't know how to do it, that's a problem. Okay, there should be an average amount per single and an average amount per family. I'm not asking, I mean, our staff does not have actuaries, right? So I don't expect you to do it. This should be a simple spreadsheet calculation from our third party actuary to just do it. It should be very straightforward. Well, if they don't, then that's a different problem.
I think, yeah, I'm sorry. I think we had this issue last year too. Jessica, in your former life, did you deal with this? Okay.
This should be the most fundamental question. This should be the question. This should be, what is it doing to people out of pocket? Like, that should be, I shouldn't even, a board member should not have to ask this question. It should be the lead item that our third party is providing to us, not you, but our third party. So I just want them to tell me what's the average per single and the average impact per family. Average isn't everything, I get that, but I'm trying to be reasonable and not asking for 11 different scenarios. I want the average is close enough. So
Thank you.
I've got a question. So $10 copay, what if they have to go to a specialist? Is it still a $10 copay? And what if they go out of network? Like if they have something that there isn't a specialist here at Prevea or at Amplify Bellin, and they have to go to Freighter or UW-Madison. That's an out of network, I'm assuming?
The vast majority, like again, 99 we have people who go to Mayo Clinic and it's considered a network, right? So so we've got like preventative care, select services covered in full. We've got, for depending on the office visit, like a $40 cost, and then part of the deductible, and then co-insurance. And so the specialist piece, I guess it would depend on the cost of the services provided, but there would be the office visit piece is $40 on the copay plan, the family. So, yeah.
So that is a higher, I expected it to be higher. If you go to a specialist, it's not $10, it's $40.
Yes, that's correct.
And imaging is not a copay. Imaging is like lab work. If, some lab work is going to be covered, but if you have to have some expensive infectious disease lab work, that's going to probably cost more money, I'm assuming.
That'll go towards your deductible and your copays or your out-of-pocket maximums.
Well, I think that That wraps up operations. Wow, that was a long time. I'm giving away the mic.
Thank you, Jeanette. Yeah, okay, so yeah, we'll take 5 minutes before we get into policies, and we'll pass the mic at that point to Samantha. Okay, okay, I think we're all here. Seeing Jeff, I now remember that we have another session after this. Yeah, I
That's why
forgot all about
I'm
that.
gonna be fast.
Okay,
Yes.
I pass the chair to Samantha.
All right, thank you. We are joined at the table by Melissa. If everyone is fine with this, due to the sheer volume of the number of policies this evening, we'd like to take a little bit of out of order and talk about the adoption policy, which is 6B first, just because that has the most substantive change because it's brand new. So, Melissa, are we good with going to 6B? Okay, perfect. Then Melissa, if you'd like to give an overview of the new policy 774, cybersecurity management and planning.
Yes, and I would just like to give a few introductory remarks. The fact that we are able to bring 39 policies tonight that don't have a significant amount of substantive changes is due to a healthy policy review cycle. We're finally on it. We're finally reviewing policies every 4 to 5 years like we should. And as a result of that, we're not having to bring whole scale changes like you've seen in the past when we've done these policy review cycles. So I want to thank my colleagues for all of their work on this and for helping me get these in front of the board tonight. So the first new one, and the only new one, is a policy entitled Cybersecurity Management and Incident Response Planning. I co-wrote this with Amy Jekyll and her team, and really this policy reflects the forward-thinking process and steps that our technology department has taken over the last few years in creating our cybersecurity management and incident response. We're already doing all of this, and in fact, some of the things that we're doing that weren't in the model policy we had to add because we are ahead of the game, and our department has really been a leader in this area.
Are there any questions about this new policy? No. Oh, I'm sorry, James.
You said it was based on model policy. Where did the model policy come from?
Yeah, we subscribe to the WASB updates in their series of policies. So they put out new policies or they update their policies over time based on legislative changes. So this was a new model policy from WASB.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, then let's go back to item 6A, which is the host of revisions. So there's a pretty extensive cover sheet here, and Melissa, I'm gonna let you kind of just go in order here.
Okay, I'm just going to name the number, and if you have any questions, speak up, or I'm just going to continue down the order, okay? All right, 620 annual operating budget. 623 budget implementation. 631.1 policy and rule regarding management of tax exempt and tax advantage obligations. 652 revenues from investments. 656 student fees. 661 depository of funds. 662 policy and rule regarding student activity funds management. 662.2 petty cash. 662.3 fund balance. 664 cash in school buildings. 671.2 expense reimbursements. 671.5 employee compensation paid from federal grants during extraordinary circumstances. This was a COVID policy. 673 payment procedures. 681 fiscal management and internal controls. 683 management of capital assets. Now we're moving on to the 700s. 720 policy and rule regarding health and safety in district facilities and programs. 720.1 buildings, grounds, and equipment security. 720.2 identification badges. 721, buildings and grounds management, maintenance and inspection. 722, reporting injuries and unsafe conditions. 721, reporting visitor accidents or injuries on school premises. 723, school safety plans. There are probably the most deletions in this policy, and it's due to the fact that when Chris and Keith reviewed the policy, they did not see a need to include every aspect of a school safety plan in the policy because you approved the school safety policy anyway. A school safety plan, I'm sorry. 723.1, emergency drills involving students. 723.2, threats of school violence and the rule. 723.3, emergency school closings. 723.4, crisis management. 726, chemical hygiene plan and hygiene management. 760, policy and rule, food services management. 761, policy and rule, free and reduced price benefits in school food service programs. 762, vending machines. 763, policy and rule, school meal account charges and collections. And then the 774, the cybersecurity policy.
Any questions on any of the revisions? Just to reiterate, those were minor revisions dealing with cross-referencing other policies, as well as some pronoun changes and title changes in there. Otherwise, everything, there's nothing really substantive in there. It looks like then item 6C is just repealing one policy, and I believe that's because it became part of, or I'm sorry, repealing a rule that became part of the policy itself. Is that accurate? Okay, any questions on that? Thank you, Melissa. And I yield back to James.
Thank you, Samantha, and I think that was a record. All right, with that, we come to the end of the agenda. We need to adjourn into closed session. Lynn, would you please read that motion?
I move that the board convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 1985, Section 1C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, to wit, deliberation of new superintendent contract.
Second.
Any discussion? Kinsey?
Meister,
Aye.
Cannell,
Aye.
Minnow,
Aye.
Gerlach,
Aye.
Lyerly,
Aye.
McCoy,
Aye.
Becker.
Okay, we're convened in closed session.
You have been watching the Green Bay Area Public School District's Board of Education meeting. Please visit the school district's website, www.gbaps.org, for more information on the district and future meeting dates. If you cannot fully access the information on this video, please let us know the accessibility issue you are having by calling 920-448-2025 or by email at communications@gbaps.org. We will try to provide the information to you in an alternative format and/or make the necessary improvements to make the information accessible.